Call the work session to order. Hello, everyone. And we have two sets of minutes to approve. I was not at the July meeting, so if we have somebody that was there.
I can make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, August minutes?
I was not there either.
All right. Mike wasn't there for August, I was. I'll make a motion to approve the August minutes.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on those? Motion to approve in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Geez, I'm going to be proceeding on this without even seeing the application. All right, so let's go to the tabled matter, Heritage Christian. Can we, judging from the documents I've seen, it really was almost like nothing happened at planning board. Nothing much.
They submitted a revised site plan showing some extra landscaping. They answered some, or responded to some citizen concerns.
Okay.
And I think basically they're just waiting for the zoning board to make a decision.
Okay, when I said nothing, I should have said nothing significant or dramatic or anything along
The
those lines.
applicant did this, or the applicant?
Right. The planning board responded.
The building is still the 11,000 square feet that they originally came.
Yeah, I don't think that's changed.
Didn't you ask them if they could come in and...
Come back with
Yes.
what's the smallest they could possibly do
Yes.
and why, and
I think they came back with 11.5.
Well, that's higher.
Oh, it's the same, or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah, unchanged.
Okay. All right, well, this computer's going nowhere. Well, I will say I am, there's two aspects of this application that are troublesome to me. The first is, while I've seen all the engineering work on the traffic, while I don't believe the enhanced traffic in that area would present a danger, in terms of the accident, we got the accident information there. I do think it's going to present a traffic problem, certainly at least at 2 times during the day, if not more. I was, you guys recall I asked the question about the right in, right out, and they looked into it and they gave an answer which was not unexpected, but it did not satisfy me, so to speak. And I think that my feelings on that aspect of the traffic is there is going to be a problem that's going to be created, and the response to that is, yeah, but it's not going to be that big a deal. And not that big of a deal to their customers perhaps, but I think to residents in the area and people that use both of those streets on a daily basis, I think it will be. So I think that's an issue, and I think it goes to the changing the effect on neighboring properties and changing the character. And then the other thing is, it's just a large, the variance requests are significant. So it's, the applicant purchased the property without any contingencies, which is their right to do. But we have the statute and it's there for a reason. And I just, my feelings are that they haven't, given the problems that I have with both of those factors, and of course self-created, I mean, there's no question about that, that the applicant hasn't met the burden in my eyes, but I'm certainly willing to talk about it.
Before we get too far, we never did seeker for this. I think we should do our first.
Why don't you let me go for another 20 minutes before you...
Sorry.
Okay.
I thought that's where you were going.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is it unlisted? What do we have? I don't.
That's probably unlisted.
Yeah, I think it is
unlisted for the...
All right, so I'll make a motion on seeker to declare this an unlisted action and find that there's no significant impacts, adverse impacts on the environment.
Second.
All right, On seeker, any further discussion?
I'm recusing myself from this.
Oh, right. Any further discussion on seeker? All right, a motion to declare it unlisted and a neg deck. Any?
Second.
And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I guess you all heard my comments on the merits, and I'll open it up to discussion.
So I feel very similarly to you. For me, I was looking at the fact that this was a very, very significant request and variance. And I felt that this really did alter the character of the neighborhood significantly. If this was zoned differently, maybe this would be a different outcome for me, but it's a residential area.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just going to be too detrimental. And
Yeah.
having firsthand knowledge of it, it's tough. And I feel for those people that live on that road.
Well, and granted, immediately to the north, there's a school, and that school is not going anywhere. And to the east, there's a church, and likely that church is not going anywhere. So while it is residential, it's not surrounded by single-family houses on two sides.
Right.
But on the western side, it is. And that's I'm not talking about an impact on a school or the church, but
No, I'm talking about the impact on the residents.
yeah, and honestly, efforts to share parking with the church, or as I said before, the right in and the right out to alleviate the traffic problems that folks would experience. I just didn't see that the effort was there, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, I would, when you look at like the accessory structures and things like that, why could they have not been consolidated into the design so they don't require the variances? As Marie said, with this being a residential area, if it didn't require as many variances, I think it would fit better. But all of a sudden, we're looking at, the maximum size of your lot is 8,000 feet, and we're going for 11.5. It just seems out of scale for what you would expect in a residential setting.
Correct. Correct. I think it's just trying to fit too much into too little of space in a residential area.
yeah.
I did listen to the hearing on this and the work session. I think to sum it up, the scope of it is just too big. They want twice what's allowed, not half of what's required. And those two together just don't work for me.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, given all that, I would make a motion to deny, principally on the three factors: that self-created requests, that the variances are substantial, and that the use there would have a significant impact on the neighboring properties.
Is that on all four?
Mr. Chairman, representing the applicant, if that is the motion, we would request to be tabled so that we can address or provide additional information if that is the case, instead of that being considered.
You had already asked for that before, didn't you?
Well,
Well, we didn't receive feedback to the additional information that we had submitted, so.
you're receiving it now, to be honest with you.
Understood, and that's why we're requesting to be tabled if that is the case.
I'm not going to withdraw my motion and, okay. All right.
I feel like we've been pretty clear right along about what we've wanted.
Somebody second.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you doing all, so you're denying all the variants?
Yes, all for the same reasons.
Right.
Did we get a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to deny?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Let us go to tonight's, just for clarification purposes. 36, application 36, which is the first one on the agenda anyway.
That's the same process.
Okay. Any questions there for clarity?
Do you want a lead sheet? You don't like?
This will be a good one. If you have an extra one,
I
yeah.
don't, but I can use my computer.
Yeah, great, that'll.
I'll just keep it open.
Thanks. All right.
The applicant is withdrawing the variance for parking. They're going to meet that.
So it's just a special permit.
Okay. Note that. How about number 2? Any questions for clarity on that? No. 3, 4,
Nope.
No.
5.
Nope.
6.
Oh, can I add a question about this? Was there a record of a prior variance? There was
Yeah, the
mention
one
of a
that
prior
less buffer,
variance.
right?
For which?
Right,
Yes, for Simply Crepes?
yes.
Yes.
Allows so that's in effect, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going from 10.7 to 9.9. Well, that's the, I'm
Yes.
sorry, that's the request. I shouldn't say it's going.
Yeah, they're encroaching further into the buffer
Okay.
than the variance that was previously approved.
Good question. 7. Anything on that?
Yeah, other than we got a mess of stuff on it.
Yeah. I don't,
Nice to see where the thing sits too, in relation to the whole.
yeah. We definitely received some items tonight that,
It's pretty late.
you know, yeah, and that's okay, we haven't heard it yet, so I don't mind tabling that. It's not as if we heard the motion and the table that we got the information and some others, so what, maybe we can
if you
get the
just-
answers at the hearing.
And if you don't get your answers and you do table it, I'll make sure to get it nice and neat. We're coming up with a plan because some of these things just hit so many.
There's so much stuff.
And you've had a lot to do this month, I
Yeah.
Got a little messy.
feel.
Question. Andy's notes requested, well, that's it on the packet, I've already done it. So, no.
All right, let's go to number 8. Okay, number 9, any questions for clarification there?
And the variance on the setback is on the south side, right? So between the lots, it's a side setback.
Correct.
Okay, great.
All right, well, anything else to take care of in this work session? All right, we will stand adjourned and take a 10-minute recess before we start the public hearings. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Penfield Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight's meeting is going to take place in 2 parts. The first part will be our public hearings. We will ask the applicant to come up to that podium there and give us name and address, and then explain to the board members why the relief being requested should be granted. Board members will quite likely have some questions for the applicant, and then we'll ask anyone in the audience that cares to speak about the application to do the same thing. Come up to the podium, give us name and address, and speak their mind about the application. Sometimes we have questions for those folks as well. Once the public hearings are adjourned, we'll take a brief recess and we'll reconvene in the back of the room to deliberate on tonight's applications and take care of any other unfinished board business that we may have. Members of the public are welcome at both the public hearings and the deliberations, although generally deliberation time is reserved solely for conversations amongst board members with staff, or sometimes with our council. Tonight's agenda is fairly large with some detailed applications, and we will give every application its due. While we try to be efficient, we also want to make sure everybody has a fair chance to speak. I say that because, as I said just a few moments ago, you're welcome to stay for both sessions. If for whatever reason you choose not to or you cannot, you can certainly feel free to call staff tomorrow morning and ask what action, if any, the board took on a particular item. We like to point out every month that we think the town does a very good job of letting citizens know that applications are going to be heard, so that folks can come in and speak about the applications if they choose to do so. The town does that first by advertising the hearing with the address. The town also makes sure that the applicants post the signs that, shaped sort of like for sale signs, but we've all driven by and seen those. The town also mails postcards to folks that live in the vicinity of the application. And then the town also does it, what I say is the old-fashioned way, and that is posting the agenda here at the town hall on the bulletin boards. We think it does a good job, and we certainly welcome comments from everybody. It helps us do our job. So having said that, I'd ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thanks, folks. Andy, may we have the first application, please?
Thomas Gangemi, the Children's Dyslexia Center of Rochester, 501 South Clinton Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14620. Requests a special use permit under Section 250-14.3 and Section 250-5.6-B2 of the Code to allow a tutoring center for school-age children with dyslexia and an area variance under Section 250-14.3 of the Code to allow less parking than required under Section 250-7.7-D of the Code at 1549 Empire Boulevard. The property is currently or formerly owned by Carl A. Zizzo and is zoned limited business, SBL number 093.19-1-4, application number 19Z-0036.
And Andy, we've had a change in the application?
Yeah, the applicant is going to withdraw the request for the variance for less parking because he's proposing to meet the minimum requirements.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Tom Gangemi, and I'm here to turn 1549 Empire Boulevard into a conforming use for the limited business district as an office building for the Children's Dyslexia Center of Rochester.
All right, could you give us a little more detail on what you're planning to do, what your operation would be, and hours and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's an after-school tutoring program. I have some of the staff here that could actually explain more about that.
Okay.
This is
Hi, I'm Ann Lupiani-Casca. I'm the director of the Children's Dyslexia Center. So we tutor dyslexic students in the Orton-Gillingham approach to reading, which is specifically designed to help people with dyslexia. We tutor them twice a week for an hour each time, so Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday, Thursday. And we do that throughout the academic session.
This is done after school?
Yes.
Okay. Till about what time? Immediately after school, or?
So typically, well, right now we have 4 and 4:30 and 5 and 5:30. So some staggered tutoring among the tutors and the students, depending on their availability after school.
And nothing during the summer?
We have had a summer session up till now, but with the move and everything, we would have to reevaluate that.
Okay. This will be your only location?
Yes.
Okay. And nothing on Fridays?
No.
How many students do you tutor at one time?
We currently have 8, and we could expand up to 11 for right now.
at one time.
Yeah, at one time, only, there will only be, right now, there's only 2 at a time in one slot, and then 2 more in the next slot.
Okay, so there's only 2 students and 2 tutors there at any one time? Is there administrative staff or
So
anything?
2 tutors plus the director, so
Okay.
for me. So
So
3 of
5.
us at one time.
5 total. Do you plan on doing any public meeting type things? Either, is there going to be?
We haven't, no, we haven't done that
About
at all.
that. And during the summer, will the hours expand typically?
So,
or-
if we do have a summer session, what we've had in the past is during the mornings. But the same idea, Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday, Thursday for an hour each time.
So this is going to be kind of a low impact kind of thing as far as comings and goings?
Yeah, typically is.
And I think you said you have parking for 8, or you're going to put parking in for 8 cars?
I don't remember the exact number.
Yes, we currently have 6, and then a small handicap space we plan on adding. It's less than 1,000 square feet of disturbance, and we've talked to the town staff about that, and it's going to be a requirement that we're going to provide.
Are you changing the exterior footprint of the building at all?
Nothing at all.
Okay. What about changes to the outside other than the footprint? Are you going to, is it going to look more like an office building and less like a house, or?
Well, not at this time. It's pretty much going to be an at-home sort of feel tutoring center.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we'll propose to have the minimal sign allowed. I think it's a 4x5, 20 feet from the lot line, 20 feet high.
Okay.
And a sign on the building.
So it's pretty much, other than the signage, pretty much going to look the same?
Maybe some awnings, but primarily the way it
Okay.
looks now, yeah.
What about lighting? You going to change any exterior lighting?
It currently has a bunch of floodlights around the house, so no, there isn't any additional lighting.
Things that you need. And what are you going to do as far as parking? Are you putting gravel in, or?
It's currently a gravel lot, and I'm not exactly sure. I'm still working with the planning board or the planning department on where they want asphalt or gravel. So, but yeah, I know at least the handicap space for sure is definitely going to be asphalt.
Any change to the coloring of the building? The paint?
No.
Or leave it pretty much as is?
Pretty much, yeah. So we just pressure wash the white siding, and it's pretty clean.
Okay. That's all I have, Dan.
Questions from the board?
Will the exterior signage be illuminated at night, all night?
The sign, if we put up a sign, does it need to be illuminated? It doesn't need to be, no, I don't believe so.
So you don't plan on any activities at night or on weekends?
No, we really haven't done anything on weekends. And the evening is just as late as the last student, and then maybe another 20 to 30 minutes for cleaning up or planning or something.
Yeah. And right now, no plans to do anything there other than the tutoring program?
Yes.
Okay. I notice in your letter here, the tutoring services are provided free of charge to the families, which is great. How do you support yourselves then, if you don't?
Well, I have a child that is in their tutoring program, so I've gave them a 4-year lease at no rent.
Wow.
And I'm sponsoring, paying the bills for now.
Okay. Anything else from the board? All right, anyone in the audience care to speak about this application? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Walter F. Baker, D.S.B. Engineers and Architects, P.C. On behalf of Edward Geska, U.S. Ceilings Corp., 1085 Gravel Road, Webster, New York, 14580. Requests area variances under Section 250-14.3 of the code to allow an office warehouse building with less front, side, and rear setback than required under Section 250-5.7-D3 of the code at 85 Sovran Drive. The property is currently or formerly owned by Rect Incorporated and is zoned general business. SBL number 093.15-1-2.116, application number 19Z-0037.
Hi, Walt.
How you doing?
Good.
Good evening. I'm Walt Baker with D.S.B. Engineers and Architects, and as Andy mentioned, with me tonight is Mr. Ed Jeska, the owner of U.S. Ceilings, and we're here tonight requesting area variances for relief of front, side, and rear setbacks on the property on Sovran Drive. The site is zoned general business, and we have a very unique situation where this parcel is on a private drive with setbacks for the parcel that would be normally in a general business district on a town road or a county-type road where the setbacks are 80 feet in depth to keep the, the business district away from the street. Obviously, the setback would be greater. So we're actually on a private drive, so it's kind of a unique situation. The map I posted on the board, we have an aerial photograph off to the right. which shows an outline where our property is. This is Sovran Drive, and this is Creek Street. Baytown Plaza is right here, just north of us. Penweb Park is to the south of us, which has actually been there since the 1980s, and it's treated pretty well through that area. And there's a vacant parcel here, which is also zoned general business that they haven't built on yet. So there's existing businesses along the front of Creek Street. Life storage is to the rear. Everybody's familiar with that. That's in the back. And Nolan's Tents and Party Supplies. That's directly across from us right there. So we're kind of tucked right in the middle. It's the last piece of the puzzle, if you will. So the proposed use that Ed wants to have for U.S. ceilings is an office warehouse building, which is approximately 9,800 square feet. He's going to have about 800 square feet, which would be in this area here, which would be for his office, which would be heated, and also extra storage for materials that can't be subjected to freezing in the winter. The warehouse won't be heated, and it's primarily going to be used for equipment that they take to job sites. Shipments, he gets like shipments once a month for certain materials. A lot of the materials are shipped right directly to the job site, so it's pretty limited. There's about 3 people in the office. So we showed the parking, a handicap parking stall. We meet the code. However, he's only going to have about 3 people in the office at the time, so we've got more than enough parking. We've got like 8 spaces. So that's pretty much what the operation will be. The operation is going to run from 7 to 5 during the day, during the week, not on Saturdays. There's no warehouse employee, so we didn't have to worry about parking for an employee staff person. And we've attended the town board because it's in a general business district where the requirement is that you have to go in front of the town board so they can approve the use within the general business. We did that last month and received approval for the town board. Then we went to the planning board for conceptual review last week, and the planning board's in favor of the project, and obviously we have to receive the variances to proceed forward with site plan approval with the planning board. We did list all the variances on the site plan over here, and I tried to color it up a little bit so you can see the orange area. If we were to comply with all the setbacks on this particular piece of property, because it's a unique shape, in Sovran Drive, like I mentioned, through here is this area right through here. Sovran Drive cuts right through the parcel through this area here. It's a private drive, so everybody has access to it, cross-access easements. But the orange area, if we were to comply with the front setbacks, in dealing with Jim Costello and the town staff, they said, seeing we have a frontage here and a frontage here on the private drive, we need to have an 80-foot front setback. We'd have to have an 80-foot front setback here. We'd need a 30-foot front setback to the rear, and they're also calling this the 30-foot rear setback. And we have an easement on the side to the north and access, fire access here. This would also be a 20-foot easement. So we've got easements. The only place we really comply with the code is on this part of the property right here. So the orange actually, the purple is where the building would be. So that requires a 20-foot side setback, and we have 28 feet. So I did list all the variances on here for each side of the property. Like I mentioned, the 80-foot on this side, we're proposing 31 feet for the building. We do have adequate parking and access. You get truck deliveries on the private drive, see it's a shared access that the truck could come in, back up to a loading dock, and leave. There's also a side entrance here. We showed that on the building rendering. So you'd have the truck deliveries here. There's also a door on the side, a door in the front, and the office over here. So we did wrap it with 4 foot of brick versus the vertical metal siding, which is similar to what you see on the other buildings in the neighborhood, in the general business neighborhood. So we do have a request for quite a few variances, but again, this is a unique piece. It's on a private drive, and we're hoping the board will see their way to approve them.
Just to clarify, the picture that you have, can you show us the face on the map where that is? I want to make sure I have it.
Right, north being up.
Yeah.
So this is our south elevation, if you will, which is the south. This would be the south elevation, and that would be the east elevation, this side here.
Right. Thank you. I just wanted to make
And
sure.
again, if you look at an aerial photograph, we're set back off of Creek Street quite a ways behind these other buildings.
Well, when you were talking about the use of the warehouse, I think you said equipment.
Yes.
Is it, I was under the impression that it was more materials.
Well, Ed
No,
can answer
actually,
that.
our material is delivered, we're an interior contractor, drywall, metal stud framing,
Yeah.
insulation, okay? Most of our deliveries are delivered right to the job site. The only thing we're storing is our equipment such as scaffolding, lifts, also tools.
Okay.
And we do get deliveries of insulation. We buy direct, so
All right.
that's what would be stored there.
You plan on doing any sort of maintenance or repairs on any of the equipment in the warehouse?
No need to.
Okay. And what sort of traffic would you expect to see as a result of your building going there? I mean,
So typically, we load around 6:37 in the morning, and then they're out delivering.
And what vehicle is used to
That's
transport?
cube vans. We have 3 cube vans.
What, can you give me a
It's
little bit?
14 foot long.
Okay. All right. Anything else here?
How about in terms of deliveries coming on site from tractor trailer, things like that? How often do those happen? What time of the day would those happen typically?
Once a month, and they're usually there by 9 o'clock.
Okay, so it's not early morning, 5 a.m., 8 p.m., it's during the daytime?
Yes.
And there's no need for a dumpster, an outside dumpster. I mean, anything he has, all the materials go to the job site, so he doesn't create any waste that he needs a dumpster.
What kind of lighting do you have on this building?
We'd like to have one at least on each door. That's the intent.
But no pole lighting in the parking lot?
No.
Okay, anyone in the audience care to speak about this application?
What are the codes as far as noise?
Come on up, ma'am. Yes, please.
I'm Jan Widboom from 32 Hill Creek Road. More as a general question, what are the town codes as far as noise? He mentioned truck deliveries or loading is about 6:30 in the morning. What is the code as far as when businesses can be creating noise by loading and unloading?
Andy?
Well, we have there's a general noise ordinance that applies to any unreasonable or excessive noise. It's more restrictive between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And then from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. it is less restrictive. Basically, the less restrictive portion says that no unreasonable noise should be able to be heard more than 50 feet beyond the property line. I don't know that we would consider a truck traffic or traffic in general to fall under the noise ordinance requirements.
And that's more because there's a road just outside the building?
Right.
Okay.
Well, so let me ask a follow-up in that regard. Do you anticipate with the truck traffic, the trucks having to back up at all and the beeper going off? We hear that once in a while with garbage trucks.
They arrive between 6:30 and 7 to get to the warehouse. We rent warehouses right now, and that's usually the case.
Yeah.
Then by the time they get set up and start loading a vehicle, that's not until 7:30, 8 o'clock. So,
Okay.
I mean, and no, we don't. I don't believe that sound from the putting the truck in reverse is going to cause any kind of issue.
Yeah,
It's not that loud.
right.
Would you anticipate the loading to occur inside the building or outside the building?
Inside the building.
Okay, so it'd be interior.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience? All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher and Mary Stutz, 85 Meadowlark Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526. Request an area variance under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a deck with less front setback than required under section 250-5.4-C3A of the code at 85 Meadowlark Drive. The property is owned by Christopher and Mary Stutz and is zoned planned development. SBL number 125.03-3-55, application number 19Z-0038.
Mary Stutz, my husband Chris, we're requesting a 5-foot variance to replace the deck on the front of our house. It doesn't have enough room as we're required by certain sections of the town law. This deck was not permitted, as the contractor, Jeff Talon, at the time, 10 years ago, said, you don't need a permit, it's not attached to your house. Well, I found out that's not true anymore. So
can you describe the deck for me, what you're proposing?
yeah, it will be very similar to the one here, it's very hard to see. It will be 18 by 10. It will actually cross over, and the steps will come down onto the sidewalk.
Is it going to be coming out more from the face?
The same width as this.
So the only addition is to go by the door and then also over to the left, to the right side of the
Yes,
house?
it's going to go over just a little bit.
Right to the edge of the house.
To the edge of the house, just aesthetically it looks better. That's the only reason for that.
Will there be a railing?
Yes.
Okay.
There will be a railing, and going all the way around, just like this, the steps will go all the way over and come down.
Okay. Go ahead.
As you can see, we don't really have neighbors. We're on the curb. So, I mean, you know, there really is no one, it's not going to be visually disturbing to any of the neighbors that I can tell, because there's nobody on either side of us that can actually see the deck.
Is there anyone who has a deck similar to that in your neighborhood?
Yes, the gentleman down the street just put one on his house.
Okay.
Yep. I can't tell you the number, but he just completed his.
Okay, that was all I had. Thank you.
Does the deck serve as a landing for the door?
It will, yes.
And then the steps are on the side rather than coming this way out the front?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
I had surgery scheduled for June, which I did have done. The contractor designed it that way so it'd be easier for me to get in and out of the house. Doesn't matter now, but, you know.
This will make it easier.
It looks nice.
Hopefully there won't be a next time, so.
Yeah, we hope there's not another hip replacement in my future, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
That's all.
Anything else? No. Anybody in the audience care to speak about this? Okay, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Boy, we're moving along.
Yeah.
Paul and Laura Fardellone, 176 Beverly Drive, Rochester, New York, 14625. Request a conditional use permit under Section 250-13.2 and Section 250-5.7-C1A of the code to allow the operation of a restaurant, Forno de Laura, at 1601 Penfield Road. The property is owned by Penfield TK Owner LLC and is zoned general business. SBL number 138.08-1-2. Plaza, application number 19Z-0039.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to brief the board this evening and tell you about our project. Laura and Paul Fardellone. We want to use an existing 2,100 square foot space in Panorama Plaza and convert it to a rustic biscotti and pizza kitchen, a very casual, family-oriented bistro. And this represents the build-out. It will show seating for 24 and all the appropriate safeties for hood vents and what have you are in the architectural plans. The space will be operated at 11 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, closed on Sundays. There will be no caustic aromas or what have you. It'll be ovens, baked goods, and pizza. And all of the fire prevention, I'm waiting on the bid from the fire prevention. We're putting in a full fire alert system inside the building.
You mentioned odors and things like that. How will they be vented out? Will they be vented to the ceiling, the rear?
It will be vented straight through the ceiling. We have an 11-foot hood vent we're putting in with 2 makeup air units and a fan on the roof.
Okay. From the exterior, what kind of changes will we see compared to what there is now?
So you'll see window placards, in the front windows, clear decals. You can actually see through most of it. And then there'll be the sign, the lighted sign.
Okay. And that will be illuminated in the evenings all the time?
Yes. Okay. Whatever the plaza, you'll have it on time.
On the plaza timer, okay. Yes. Any other changes from the exterior? Any other lighting, things like that?
None at all.
Okay. Entrances are staying as they are?
They are.
Okay. How many staff do you anticipate?
Two,
Two? And that's it? Okay, perfect.
until we can't keep up.
Sure. And the plaza is providing you adequate parking?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's all I have.
Any outdoor seating?
No.
No.
Was that your question, Marie?
It was.
I jumped in on you.
I have nothing. Usually restaurant applications bring in samples just.
You know, it's
Usually.
interesting.
You
We were
know,
going
I was going to,
Well,
and he's like, I wouldn't
How far do you have to go?
I don't want to prize the board, you know, I didn't want to
You can still negotiate.
Anybody in the audience care to speak about this application? All right. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd Jones Custom Construction, 23 Old Country Lane, Fairport, New York, 14450. On behalf of Roseanne Lill, request an area variance under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a three-season room addition with less setback than required under section 250-5.3-D3 of the code at 5 Shadow Pines Drive. The property is owned by Roseanne Lill and is zoned townhouse, SBL number 124.03-1-14.007, application number 19Z-0040.
How are you? I'm Todd Jones. This is the homeowner, Roseanne Lill. Currently, there is a 16 by 14 deck on the back of her home that we all assume was built at the time that the units were built, but there was never an individual permit for that. So currently, there is a deck sitting there. So we're requesting that setback in the rear become shorter than is proposed on the map.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what the deck will be turning into and what's the plan?
I didn't bring a fancy handout to put up there, but I can give you a couple copies of this. It's 14 by 16. It'll have a turn gable. It will be conventional construction. So currently, the way the deck is built doesn't meet current standards. So we'll bring that up to code as far as structure goes. And then it'll be 2 by 4 construction. It'll be insulated. It'll have insulated windows, drywall, ceiling fan, LVT flooring. And then as far as the exterior goes, because it's Shadow Pines, we'll match the cedar and match the stain, so it's in keeping with the homeowners association.
Perfect. So I have to say you answered my next question there. Will it match the existing home? And I believe probably your homeowners association has looked at all of this and approves that already, probably with fairly stringent rules.
There were 4 letters turned in. One, her direct neighbor. The other one, Shadow Pines Golf Course in the rear, and then the homeowners, the property management company, as well as the board of the HOA. No one has objections.
Okay. To the rear or sides, any additional lighting from the exterior that would illuminate into the neighbors?
We haven't really talked about, but I would envision a coach light to at least light the door when you leave there,
okay,
but not a floodlight in the rear.
Okay. That's all I have.
What's the roof line going to look like?
If you turn the page there, sir,
Yeah, I'm trying
turn to the next page. It kind of gives you a view of what it would look like from the rear.
Okay. So it's following the existing roof line here and then cutting in?
It is.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side, we'll extend that roof pitch straight out that 14 feet, and then come across to the center and then return that down.
Okay. Looks good, thank you.
Anything else from the board? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this one? All right, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
T.Y. Lynn International, 255 East Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14604. On behalf of Pierre Heroux, Simply Crepes, requests area variances under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow less parking spaces than required under section 250-7.7-D of the code, less buffer from a residential zoning district than required under section 250-7.2-A of the code, and greater lot coverage than permitted under Section 250-5.6-D2 of the code at 1229 Bay Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by Cienciana Property Management, LLC, and is zoned limited business, SBL number 093.11-1-39, application number 19Z-0041.
Good evening.
Hi.
Just want to hand out, some color drawings I want to hand out. So what's in that packet is just an aerial of the existing conditions, an aerial with the site plan on it, and then just the site plan itself, and then on the back is the floor plan.
Do you have one you can put up?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'll actually put up the... So good evening, I'm Randy Bebout with TY Lynn International. I'm here on behalf of Simply Crepes. With me tonight is the owner, Pierre Heroux, and Sue Kim, who is the real estate broker who's been working with Pierre on getting this project under contract. So this project, 1229 Bay Road, is the former Weston Company jewelry store. I believe this facility has been vacant for about 2 years. Located next to Eastway Manor to the southwest and the Bay Center Plaza to the other side, and directly adjacent to Steinmiller Insurance. Project area is about 0.65 acres, so Pierre has an option to purchase this parcel if he's successful in obtaining all the town approvals. The building is approximately 3,176 square feet. Looking at obviously renovating that into a Simply Crepes restaurant. Outside, some fairly minor changes, painting, some other improvements, but no building additions really, other than we have to build some new platforms on the back of the building because the rear doors are elevated. Building will have standing seating area for approximately 71 patrons, and there'll be approximately 10 employees. Exterior site improvements, so we're talking about increasing the number of parking spaces, redoing landscaping. With the increase in parking spaces, we're adding impervious surface, so we're going to address stormwater mitigation. Adding a dumpster with a wooden dumpster enclosure along with fencing along the property line on the rear and then the side abutting the Eastway Manor apartments. Proposed hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And this project site is in the LB Limited Business District. So the three variances that we're asking for tonight, the first one is lot coverage. So with the increase in the parking, our lot coverage ends up being 65.5, where 65% maximum is permitted. Essentially, we're increasing the impervious by about 0.2 acres. The second variance that we're requesting is the buffer from the adjacent residential property. So 50 foot is required. This parcel was previously granted a variance to allow the building to sit at 10.7 feet from that buffer versus the 50. Again, we're not changing the building footprint, so we're not encroaching on that. What we are encroaching closer on is with the parking in the rear. So at this point on this rear property line, it becomes 7.9 feet. It's about 9 feet and change on this property line here along the apartment. So just slightly closer than what the prior variance was. And as effort to mitigate that, we would be providing a 6-foot-high privacy fence with landscaping along those two rear property lines. The third variance that we're seeking are the number of parking spaces. So currently there is 9 parking spaces on this site. We're proposing to have 32 parking spaces on the site. Town code requires 1.5 spaces for each 2 persons of occupancy and 1 space for each employee, or 64 spaces, which was calculated by the town building department and confirmed by Andy. So that's was the basis of our variance request. In addition to the 32 spaces on site, Pierre has worked with Steinmiller Insurance next door, and they have agreed to enter into agreement for a shared parking agreement to utilize their spaces. They have 12 spaces next door. I think we indicated in our submittal that we were talking about 10 spaces. It could be 10, it could be 12, but we were sort of being conservative. They generally only have 1 or 2 people there working at a time, so at a minimum, we were sort of preserving those 2 spaces, and it potentially could be 10 additional spaces to use, and that's how we came up with the 42. In addition to that, Pierre approached the plaza owner over here, and was working very diligently to try to secure some spaces under an agreement. What came out of that was that the plaza owner is willing to essentially enter into an agreement that allows his employees to park there. There's going to be some additional insurance provided by Pierre, but he was not willing to dedicate X amount of spaces to, say he could buy 20 spaces. He wasn't willing to do that because the uncertainty of the future of that plaza, and if a tenant changes out, what impact that might have. So what we're saying is we've got 32 spaces on site, we've got 10 spaces next door, and his 10 employees are going to park in the plaza. So we really have 42 spaces potentially for customers. And I would just note, while we were working with the plaza owner and looking at different options, by simply restriping that plaza, there's some very wide drive aisles between the first couple of rows. By simply restriping, we were able to gain about 20 to 22 spaces. With some further really minor work of adjusting the front curb line so it was consistent, I mean, we could get upwards of 30 to 35, 40 spaces. But like I said, 20 to, at a minimum 20 spaces with just restriping that plaza. And I just note that as that's just something that we sort of have, a tool that we could have in the future if needed. We don't think we would need it, but if that was an avenue we had to go down, there is a possibility of increased parking on that plaza. Maybe it's not for Pierre, but if the plaza owner even needs it. So there's some efficiencies that could be improved in that plaza. So in regards to the parking, if the floor plan is in there. Essentially, there's 12 to 14 tabletops if you count the bar area where there's no seating, people could be standing. But essentially, there's about 14 tabletops. Based on Simply Crepe's 3 other locations, they have a location in Raleigh, North Carolina, a location in Canandaigua, and a location in Pittsburgh. Their average check receipt is about 2.1 to 2.3 people per check. So if you equated that to the number of tabletops, you're in that 28 people, 28 cars range for the number of spaces that would be required. And that's pretty consistent. He shared with me the information year to date. We're here in September. It's been consistent from the beginning of the year. It's been consistent in prior years. And the only other thing I would add with that is what I would compare this to, and I know it's not the same restaurant, but just what our office has worked on before is the McDonald's, and if you look at the numbers of the variances that we got on McDonald's to what we're asking here in regards to number of tabletops and the number of parking spaces on the McDonald's at the 2191 Penfield Road, there was 41 parking spaces was granted, a variance for 41 parking spaces. And again here, counting the insurance, we're at 42. That's a bigger building, and their tabletops were 19 compared to 14 here And again, I'm not saying it's an exact comparison, but it really is very comparable as far as the variance requests that we're seeking. And then I would just note that we did go on August, I think it was August 2nd, we attended the planning board meeting, informal review, and they did issue a letter on August 8th, essentially stating that they weren't opposed to the project. They were supportive of the direction that we were moving. Obviously, we need to come in front of this board and get the variances. So with that, I can answer any questions that the board may have.
This may be for your client to answer too, but I just wonder, all your other locations, what is your busiest time of day? Or?
Typically, our busy times would be on Saturdays and Sundays, and they would be, it's brunch.
Okay.
And it'll be pretty much from about 10 o'clock till about 2:30.
All right, and do you know if the insurance company operates during those hours?
They do not operate on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay, and how about the businesses in the Bay Center Plaza, if you know? There's a vet, probably open Saturday. It is open Saturdays.
Right.
I've been there.
I mean, there's a restaurant, there's a couple restaurants between
Yeah.
the pizza place and the
Liquor store.
Chinese restaurant, the liquor store. I'm sure they all have Saturday hours, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you know where in the plaza your employees will be parking? Is there a designated area?
Yes, there's what we spoke about with the owners of the property was basically using the rear part of the building, which would be a lower rear level.
Yeah.
We identified
Drops down a little
drops down in the back. Those would be what would be considered probably the least desirable spots for most of the traffic that would be there for the businesses at the upper level.
Okay. And is it your intention that whatever agreements you have, whether it's the insurance company or the plaza, that those agreements are going to be in writing?
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
So you wouldn't oppose, I assume, then a condition of approval being that you have signed
Absolutely.
written agreements?
We have, we already have a letter of intent signed off with Steinmeller Insurance. And we also, the agreement that we would have with the plaza owner would most likely be fairly informal. They're going to ask us to have additional insured coverage for them in case an employee of ours was injured on their property, or if our employee would damage their property and so forth. So we would have that type of coverage, and that would be part of our agreement. But they're extremely reluctant to say you can have this number of spots, because they are very concerned about it. Their job is to rent the 14,000 square feet that they have in that plaza, and they do not want to create any limitations to bringing any tenants there. And so I understand. So it's a very loose agreement. So I'm not. When you say you want it in writing, it will be. There will be a written agreement between us, but I'm not sure how enforceable it is. I don't know.
Or how detailed it'll be?
Or how detailed. Maybe that's maybe that's what I mean. Yeah. More
All right.
how detailed.
So let's assume for whatever reason that agreement doesn't come to fruition. Are you confident that the spaces you're going to build and the ones in the insurance are going to be enough to meet your needs? Not counting the employees. I'm talking about customers.
For my customers, I feel very confident. Okay. The 42 spaces, based on what we have seen with our other restaurants, I mean, ideally, I would like to see all 65 seats with people in them.
Well, sure.
The reality is, sometimes I get 2 tops, and sometimes I get 3 tops, or I get 5 tops, and I can't sit everybody. So oftentimes I have what I call some vacancy in my seating. So the reality is 2.3 is what my average is across all 3 businesses. On the high side, 2.1 on the low side. And when I throw that number out, and I don't have community tables, the bar will be, in a sense, a community table, because it will be offer 6 seats. People can sit there together. But that's the only community table I have. So the reality is, I feel very confident that with the tables that I will have, even using a high side of 2.3, that the reality is I'm probably going to be, worst case, using 28, 32 spots for my customers. And so I feel that most of the spots will be handled within my own lot, and there will be overflow occasionally when we happen to have a crazy day that everything's lining up.
The fence that you're gonna put up on the apartment side, can you describe that for me a little bit? What it'll look like?
Initially, we're talking about a wood stockade dog-eared fence. And then we'd have the same material for the dumpster enclosure. It would just sort of flow right into the dumpster enclosure and just really look like a fence for them.
Yeah. And did you also say you're going to put additional buffering there?
Well, we do have some, on the planning plan, we have some additional plantings along here. We didn't do it along here just because of the way the landscape plan came together. So we do have some additional plantings. One thing I wanted to add is Sue Kim has went to some of the business owners in the plaza, a handful of them, and we do have some letters of support that I can provide to the board that they're supportive of this project.
Okay. And the entrance to this property it looks like it's, excuse me, directly across the street from the Wegmans property. Back when it was a jewelry store, I imagine there was not a lot of traffic coming in and coming out. Do you anticipate any issues with traffic control problems at that intersection, any safety concerns?
We don't.
Okay.
And we're not moving that entrance. I mean, we're keeping the existing apron as is. We're really working from the right-of-way line back.
Yeah. And there's a turning lane there, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions from the board?
Nope.
Anything here? I think your Canandaigua location, I think, participated in the beer crawl last week down there. Yeah, that's what I heard.
I heard it went really well.
Yeah, but that location, actually, is there just street parking? There's public parking behind,
Right, there's actually, there's parking between us and the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
So there's a strip there with handicap as well as regular parking, and there's about 100 parking spots behind us that are shared by many businesses in downtown.
Okay, thanks. Marie?
Have you talked to the Eastway Manor
Yes.
building owner?
I spoke to their manager.
Okay.
Yes.
And-
That's who I've been talking to about the parking options there.
And they're supportive?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're very excited about us being there. What's happened to in all three of the locations that we've gone to, there's been a synergistic effect on other businesses. The traffic that we bring in oftentimes will shop within and shop and support the businesses around us. And we saw that specifically in our Schoen Place Pittsford location. Mostly Clay, the owner there, Margie, came to us. She said, "Oh my gosh, I need to open on Sunday." Her business was up 20% the year after we opened up. Similarly, businesses on Main Street in Canandaigua said the same thing. The businesses in Raleigh, North Carolina, there's a spice shop next to us. There's a bar, and there's several other. I mean, it's a whole shopping area, and they've all attributed a lot of their success to again the synergistic effect of us being there with them.
So I appreciate the answer. I was just being clear, it's the apartment building. I was wondering about if you had talked to the manager of the apartment
Oh, I have not talked to the manager of the apartment building.
Okay. So we don't know how Eastway Manor Apartments feels about it?
I don't.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Just wondered.
You know, actually, I meant to ask, and I'm sorry I didn't, but the folks that would be parking at the insurance and your employees or others in the plaza, what path would they take when they leave their cars to get? I know there's a sidewalk out front, but is there like a path behind the buildings? I'm not quite sure. Just want to make sure it's safe for the people to walk there.
Currently, there's no defined path.
Okay.
When we were talking about putting when he was talking about gaining spaces to put customers over here, we were talking about a defined path. We sort of backed off of that, knowing that it's his employees, not that it's any less important, but there's no defined path, and we haven't proposed that at this point.
Okay. Well, I certainly would just urge you to take safety precautions in that regard, especially in the winter. And then from the insurance company over to this property, I'm looking at the photo, and it looks as there's some clear paths that folks can walk if they want, or certainly they can choose to come out to the sidewalk.
Correct.
But that's longer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these cars are parallel parking. When I was out at the site, these cars were parked there. I presume these were the employees of the insurance company. I mean, I would say you can fairly safely walk, through there without too much issue.
Okay. Anything else from the board? No. Anybody in the audience care to speak about this application? Okay.
Thank you.
BME Associates, 10 Lift Bridge Lane, East, Fairport, New York, 14450. On behalf of 777 Panorama Properties LLC, request area variances under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a building with less buffer than required under section 250-7.2-C of the code and less parking than required under section 250-7.7-D of the code at 125 Panorama Creek Drive. The property is currently or formerly owned by 777 Panorama Properties LLC and is zoned limited industrial. SBL number 138.12-1-1.1, application number 19Z-0042.
Evening. My name is Mike Bogojewski with BME Associates. With me is Rich Lafrois from Lafrois Builders and the 777 Panorama team. We're here tonight to request two variances for the first building within the Panorama Park, professional and business park that was previously approved. The two variances we're requesting will involve reduced parking from the required amount and also a reduced buffer amount from the required amount on the west side of the property. A little background, the overall Panorama Park approvals were approved by the planning board back in June, which kind of set the slate for these future developments throughout the park, this being the first one. Those overall approvals basically approved the roadway going up through the property and approved the infrastructure, utilities, and some future basically developable pads for these future buildings to be developed. This first lot, called Building A, is proposed to be a 40,000 square foot office building. And as you enter the park, I'm going to flip this around. And as you enter the park from Panorama Creek Drive and Panorama Trail, you follow the proposed road up to what we're calling the top of the hill, and this lot is on the west side of the road, north being to my left, your right. The first variance we're requesting is for a reduced number of parking spaces from the required amount. We had originally noted that the required amount is 300 spaces, but working with Andy, he let us know that the required amount is actually 225. And working through PRC comments with town staff through the planning board review process, we were able to revise our site plan to now propose 220 parking spaces. So we're requesting a variance for 5 parking spaces less than the required amount. The second variance we're requesting is for reduced buffer to the west property line. The requirement is for a 150-foot buffer along that property to the residential district. This property is zone limited industrial. The property to the west is zone MHP manufactured home parcel. So the proposed building is actually adhering to that requirement of maintaining a 150-foot buffer. It's actually 160 feet from the property line. But with the parking behind the building and maintaining access and some additional parking spaces in the rear of the building, that parking area encroaches into that buffer. The distance from that parking area to the property line is 100 feet. With that encroachment, there is some clearing and grading on that west side of the parking in that area there. We did work through town staff comments, through the planning board review and PRC review to propose a retaining wall in that area to reduce some of that grading required along the west side of that parking area, which maintains some additional buffer and increases the wooded area that would have been previously cleared on the original site plan that was originally submitted. Included in the application packet that we had submitted was basically a cross section from that parcel, the MHP area, through the parking area and through the building. We wanted to show basically that even with the encroachment of the parking area into that buffer area, there is a big elevation difference from the mobile home park to the parking area behind the building here. We're measuring it at 28 feet, so even though the parking area is encroaching into that buffer area, you're not going to get headlights shining out onto the mobile home houses to the west. That elevation difference does provide a substantial and helps strengthen that buffer between that parking area and the mobile home park.
Excuse me, what's the difference in elevation approximately?
28 feet, 28 to 30 feet.
Over a stretch of the 100 feet?
Over the stretch of the 100 feet, correct.
Okay.
I do want to point out that there is a 150-foot buffer to the north side of the overall property, not to the lot, and we're not encroaching into that buffer to the zoning district for the townhouses. It's only along that western property line, to the rear of the building, basically on the west side of that lot. That distance from the building to the north line is roughly 400 feet of wooded area, which does maintain that required 100-foot, 50-foot buffer to the north side also. With the letter of intent that we included, we did outline responses to the 5 factors that the board must consider when looking at these 2 variances. We do feel that both variances are not substantial based on the fact that the parking, we were able to reduce that difference from required to proposed, and the buffer encroachment that we're proposing basically allows for that parking area in the rear of the building and access in the rear of the building, but still maintains that buffer from the parking area to that western property line to the mobile home park. If the board would like, we can go through those responses, but I'll let you guys decide that. And if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Where does that road go now, the main road? It doesn't go all the way up, does it?
Well, it's currently under construction,
Yeah.
but it would go basically to the top of the hill.
So where is it now? Because I drove it a little bit and I was trying to find out where exactly this building was going.
If you came in next to the Thermo Fisher building, there is an existing road access point between the Popeyes and the Thermo Fisher building, and then you would enter the site. That's the only existing part at the moment that you would.
But the road to the left of that is started, right?
They're working on this roadway going up the hill, correct.
Okay. What's the west boundary line between the parking area and the line? What is it wooded there as well?
It is wooded, but a large portion of this proposed Building A site has been cleared with the approved overall plans that allowed for a lot of that infrastructure and grading of the building pad area to be done.
So what you're telling me is not in all spots?
There is, in that back corner, southwest corner of the building, there is some additional grading and clearing, basically to get the parking and access to the rear of the building, and to allow grading to be tied into the existing hill that goes up to the west, and also allows us to get a swale in behind there, because there is some drainage that comes off from west to east that we need to account for also.
So there's not necessarily trees blocking all the way across on that line?
Currently there is, yes.
There is, still
Yes.
some?
Yep.
Okay.
And we did add that, through the planning board review process, we did add that retaining wall in that southwest corner, which pulls the grading back away from the property line, maintains additional trees along the property line.
So then the retaining wall isn't going any higher than ground level, or is it?
The wall itself is proposed to be 10 feet
High?
high, yes.
Above grade?
From the bottom, if you're looking at the retaining wall, from the bottom to the top. And then that slope continues up to the property line.
Okay, I'm having trouble following you. Where the parking lot is in the rear portion, okay, to the retaining wall.
Yep.
Is that where that wall, is that wall level with that parking?
Yeah, the bottom of the wall would be relatively level with the...
And then it drops down 10 feet?
And then it would go up 10 feet, and then from top of the wall, it goes up even farther to the property line and the mobile home park.
Okay.
Does your cross-section on the plans you gave show that retaining wall? Because I didn't see it.
The one that was submitted initially did not, just because we didn't have, that was a revision that we made through the PRC comments from the planning board.
Okay, I thought it was lower.
28 feet.
Gotcha. Okay. Is this a two-story, three-story, one-story, the building itself?
One-story building, the 24 feet high, the proposed building, and Rich is here, that if there's any questions on the building, Rich can also help answer some of that stuff.
And what type of exterior lighting do you have planned for this?
There is parking lot lighting proposed in the front of the building. The rear of the building, facing the west, is just some building-mounted security lighting.
So the parking area in the western half is not illuminated as such?
Yeah, illuminated from the building, basically, yeah. No light poles or anything on the rear of the building.
Okay. I don't have anything else, Dan.
You guys have anything at the moment? I have a couple if I can ask.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marie.
What kind of businesses would be in this building?
It's proposed just office. I'll let Rich elaborate a little bit if he would like.
Yeah, primarily there'll be office, some small little service area maybe with the office, but generally an office, for example, we have Staples, it's their where their salespeople come in and out of. We have numerous other tenants but primarily it's at their office.
Are there any businesses that would create excessive noise?
No.
Trucks delivering?
No, I mean, they would, if their minimal trucks would deliver, we are providing a couple loading docks just because that's a requirement people have. But if I have about 1 million square feet in Henrietta, if I see one tractor trailer there a day, it's probably a lot. You know, those things are delivered by UPS and FedEx mostly.
There's nothing industrial?
Pardon?
Nothing industrial in that building?
Nothing, no manufacturing per se.
Okay.
I got another question.
Go ahead, Mike.
This may be an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Why can't this entire thing be moved to the east 50 feet?
So with the overall design of the Panorama Park, the proposed roadway basically kind of set that lot width, and when we looked at locating that road. We do, not shown on the overall aerial, but on the east side of Parker Hill Drive there are steep slopes to contend with. So while looking at the grading for the proposed road, we did try to follow an existing kind of graded area that was previously used on site, and also to not try to encroach into those EPOD areas, wooded and steep slope areas on the east side of that road. So we kind of set, basically the existing topography kind of set the location for that road. So we're working with that for developable areas on both the east and west side.
So there's not going to be development below that, where you got the EPODs?
There is wooded and steep slope area here that.
Right, no, I meant down below where you would move it. I'm talking more on the east, driving it east.
We'd have to encroach in additional wooded and steep slope areas to move the road 50 feet, yes.
Which you're not intending to do for any other development here?
We'd like to not do that, yes.
So where would future development be going?
It would be going in the areas basically kind of slated and graded with the overall approvals.
Can you point that out? Yeah.
Can you show us on the map?
There is some developable pads kind of to the south of this building. There is some more pads on this side of the road, but they're split by some steep slope in the wooded areas that I talked about. You do have some other lots on both sides of Parker Hill Drive and down towards basically the eastern, basically near the entrance.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused. I mean, it sounds like you're going to develop that anyway, so if you just moved the road 50 feet.
Yeah, but to move, like I said, to move the road, we would have to encroach into additional steep slope area.
But aren't you going to do that anyway?
No. There are developable areas on that side of the road, but they're split by steep slope areas and wooded areas.
Okay.
And this parcel was originally slated as 2 lots, correct? And then it turned larger by combining 2?
Yeah, on the overall plans, we did show a layout of lots. That subdivision plan wasn't filed, and working with town staff through the planning board process for this lot, those lot lines were revised, and that subdivision plat was revised for this lot, basically. So
the other pads would probably be smaller going forward.
The area of this building A and kind of encompasses those two lots that were originally shown, but we obviously revised the lot line layout to accommodate this building and layout.
Sounds like this whole thing is driven by the amount of parking, which in turn is driven by what you're going to do as far as rental of the property, which you don't really know.
In terms of use, you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
which would determine the number of spots.
Maybe you need less parking, maybe you don't need parking in the back.
Sure.
If I can help out with that, I own about 4 million square feet in the Rochester market. We basically the same product as this, and the requirement is generally about 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. Again, you may have one tenant that's 4, you may have one that's 5.5, but if you took the average of a building, it's about 5 spaces per 1,000.
And about how many tenants would you estimate is going to be in this place?
I would say probably 5.
5?
By, 8,000 square feet, give or take,
Okay.
I don't know if this is possible or not, but I look at that and the fact that you have homes on top that would be, looking down, so to speak, upon this development. It's, in that sense, it's similar to something that I actually personally experienced. My home backs right up to Baytown Plaza and the Walmart. And a lot of the folks, my neighbors and myself, were concerned about what, if in our backyard looking down, what are we going to see? And nobody no offense to Walmart, but nobody wants to be in their backyard or upstairs in their house and looking out and seeing a building.
Sure.
So the developer there, the owner there, I think did a really good job of placing berms and then in some areas, wall. From my house, if I were staying on the roof of my house, I could not see Walmart, even when the leaves are down. The trees behind, there are those trees that have leaves that are going to fall off in the next couple of weeks?
They are trees with these.
Whatever the term is, I forget it.
There might be some evergreens. Yep, there might be some evergreens in there. The good part about the location of the site is that it does have that wooded area behind there with the trees and such a large elevation difference. We did have some photos to provide, there we go, that we could use to show you what that area looks like, if you want to bring those up, Rich.
So while we're going through the photos, I guess I'd ask you, other than what's there now and Mother Nature, what could you do to reduce the impact of the building being closer to the line than allowed by code, from the perspective of folks up on the hill, so to speak?
The one thing to point out, the building is outside of that buffer area.
I caught you the first time with that. It's the parking lot that's causing it. So it might be outside, but they're still going to see it, right? I mean, if you didn't have that parking lot and you complied with code, the folks would still see the building. I get that, and they might be an issue for the planning board. If no variance was needed, in other words. So I understand, but you are asking for a variance.
Sure.
Hence my question, one of the things we have to consider is impact of the application upon neighboring properties. The parking here, 5 spots, honestly, okay. To me, the bigger impact is going to be at least the visual impact from the folks up there looking down and seeing something. I think that's undeniable, that there will be an impact. So I guess what I'm asking you is, what can you do? What have you thought about doing? What are you willing to do to reduce that impact?
So one of the things we have done to reduce the impact of clearing within the buffer is that proposed retaining wall. It reduces that clearing that would be necessary along the parking area to increase the wooded area to an additional 45 feet that was not shown on the original site plan that was submitted. So that was one thing that we did do to increase that wooded area and maintain that wooded area along the property line right behind those mobile homes. We are proposing some additional tree plantings at the top of that retaining wall just to make sure we fill in some of that graded area on the top side of that retaining wall.
Okay.
If you did look at sliding that parking area to the east 50 feet to get it outside of the buffer, you're still going to end up maintaining graded area through there just because there is drainage that has to happen. Yeah. So if you end up, even if we looked at the alternative of decreasing the pavement within that buffer area, you're going to end up having to grade within the buffer, which would require some clearing just to maintain drainage that comes from the mobile home park. There is a culvert that discharges through there and a swale that through there. So we want to make sure that we're handling that drainage appropriately around the parking area, which does require some grading. The biggest, like I said, positive to this site is that elevation difference. If you're standing at the western side of that property line on the mobile home park, you do have a large wooded area right at the property line with, at a minimum, 45 feet of woods plus a 30-foot drop down.
And that's sort of what's depicted in the photos from the other side.
Correct,
looking at it. But again, those are photos taken when the what's in full bloom, and we live in Rochester, so we know those leaves aren't going to be there all year round. Okay.
Excuse me, my name is Stutz Summers, and I'm part of the team that's doing this project.
Okay.
And I'm really appreciative if you're concerned about the trailer park. You maybe won't believe it, but my first home was in Harper Trailer Park. I was 18 years old, so I know all about living in that kind of home. Unfortunately, this park that we're talking about has been underutilized, not taken care of, and for the residents to choose to live there, it's unbelievably modest, and it's been that way for a long time. We're now going to come in and spend millions of dollars, and they're going to have a manicured park immediately to their east. We are not doing anything to take away from them. We are not giving them a Walmart. We are going to give them a manicured park. Thank you.
Okay.
I had another question, Dan.
Sure.
On the mobile home park, how close is the nearest mobile home to that lot line on the west side? Is there an additional amount of space from the line to the nearest home or series?
I don't know the exact number, but I do know once you get into the mobile home park past the property line, it becomes cleared. They're relatively close.
To the line?
Yep. And I do have some additional photos here that the team found that shows. This is that steep slope area to the east of the
Can you maybe talk about some other designs that were considered for this that did not require a variance and why they weren't chosen?
We looked at some alternates of land banking and parking to try to reduce some of the grading in the buffer, but to try to also balance out the parking that the team feels is necessary for the building at that 5 to 5.5 per thousand. It's basically the area that this takes up. If we start looking at different layouts of parking, it starts to shift that parking and building to the north to the south, which does increase in different areas of steep slopes and wooded areas. If you look to the north, we can't go too far to the north because there's another 50-foot drop in elevation change if you go to the north. And then on the east side of that road, the photo that I just handed out shows that steep slope area that we're trying to maintain and not encroach into that steep slope, and then there's additional wooded area behind that also. So we did look at possible developable areas within basically the existing topography of the site that we're trying to work within to lay the building and parking out. The one benefit of the building layout is that it's long in the north-south direction, which decreases that east-west width. So we're not trying to put a large square building on a narrow developable area that would wipe out buffer area, like property line to property line. We are trying to maintain that buffer. Obviously, we do need, the parking lot corner does clip that buffer area, and which does require a little bit of grading in there, but we're trying to maintain as much buffer as we can along the property line. And the one benefit of it is that wooded area to be maintained within that buffer area and the elevation difference between there, so.
So a slightly smaller building, though, would have accomplished the requirements as well, because then less parking, smaller, setback requirements, you wouldn't need as much of a variance?
Economically, that doesn't work. I need a building that's 100 foot deep. I mean, that's the market. And, we have a parking requirement. So we spent, there's probably 30 pieces of tissue paper. How can we utilize, because we do have a fair amount of grade going up the hill, how can we pick pads and maintain as much of the existing vegetation as we can? So, like I said, this is not going through an awful lot of renditions to come up with something. There's a ravine here and it kind of goes up again. It's kind of, I'm going to say the low part of the ravine is probably someplace in here. it goes down. So anything you do, you're going to have to fill that ravine in because you can't get the drainage out from the top to come down through.
To answer one of the previous questions, we were just measuring off the map. Those mobile home park houses just west of the area that we've been talking about are approximately 40 to 50 feet off their property line, I think.
All right, anything else from the board?
Not right now.
All right. Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience care to speak about this? Okay, just one. Oh, yeah, for this, that's no other reason. Yeah.
My name is Bill Jones. I live at 66 Waterview Circle, and I'm here representing the Board of Directors for the Allens Creek Valley Condominium. I'm also assisted by Mr. Robert Marks, who's our legal counsel from Boylan Code. I've given you a letter that responds to the 5 factors that were submitted in the original application.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you so quickly, but does the applicant have the letter?
No.
If you have an extra copy, if you could give it, that'd be great.
Okay, yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
With only 13 days' notice and trying to get everybody together, it's been
That's okay.
a rush.
Honestly,
so I apologize.
my guess is this matter's going to be tabled.
Okay. So since much of the audience is here from the neighborhood and doesn't understand the 5 factors, I'm going to read through this, and I apologize, but I think it'll give them a better understanding. So the background is, from the first meeting we had with the owner, we were told, quote, this is going to be a Class A office park like Linden Oaks, okay? The intention reflected on the site plan. This was the original submitted. Back to your question earlier, these are small pods, footprints, 15 to 20,000 square feet, 2-story office buildings. Okay, every one of those is less than 20,000 square feet, 2-story office building.
Where are we? What portion are we looking at now?
It's right across here. They're combining these 2 lots, so I think the building would be right there.
All right,
so
thank you.
Good question. Okay. At the planning board meeting last Thursday, we were told that one of the tenants could be an equipment repair, and there's 2 loading docks being put on this building. I drove around Linden Oaks. There is not one building with a loading dock. You don't put loading docks on an office building, and you definitely don't put 2 loading docks, because that means truck traffic, okay? And so needless to say, in the factors, you talk about character of the neighborhood. Loading docks and truck traffic definitely impacts the neighborhood. First question, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the neighboring properties. It's unquestionable that putting in light industrial functions with their noisy truck traffic that's, next to residential properties will definitely be a detriment to our homes. While BME argues the edge of the building is, quote, honoring the 150-foot buffer required to the adjoining MHP district, the town simply does not measure the buffer that way. Instead, the town purposely states that the buffer zone be measured from the zoning district line to the nearest improvement of the LI district. The applicant should be held to this standard. We also like to remind the ZBA that sound transmission, going back to your high school physics, is inversely related to the square of the distance. That means a 50-foot reduction in that buffer will double the impact of the sound on those neighborhoods. Now, if you want to know why we're sensitive to sounds, they have brought in clearing equipment that was rated at 119 decibels, okay? Just to put that in perspective, standing next to a jet engine is 110. They ran that equipment directly adjacent to our properties. So sound is a very, very important issue for us. Given that, and with the truck traffic we expect from multiple docks, we asked the town somewhat rhetorically how they're going to enforce what Andy mentioned earlier, is limiting sounds that are audible at a distance of 50 feet beyond the property line. We will be watching that like a hawk, and we're already measuring it with acoustical meters. Second factor, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue. As the applicant readily admits, there's 55.3 undeveloped acres, and the question has to be yes. This was what was submitted for planning board approval. The concepts, the spirit of this was small office buildings, not a 40,000 square foot pad. We're confident that there's a lot of different multiple options they could have come up with without requesting a precedent-setting variance. They could reduce the size of the building, shift it around, not have loading docks. All those things would help. Third, whether the requested area variance is substantial. We strongly disagree with the applicant's opinion that the variance is not substantial. Throughout its letter, the applicant downplays the 50-foot buffer reduction. In reality, it represents a third of the reduction and a doubling of the noises. This change represents a very significant change to the neighborhood character. Again, when they were under construction, I could not have a phone call in my house. So that's a big character change. Fourth, whether the proposed area variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Although the applicant views its intrusion into the buffer zone as marginal, environmental standards have already grossly been violated by the developed, as shown by those pictures. They were required by the town to put up silt fences around all disturbed areas and a double line along the creek. Nothing was installed until the first, basically about 6 weeks afterwards, when most of the clearing was done, and as a result of members of our neighborhood calling the town hall and complaining. So Allen's Creek, which is one of the most pristine trout and salmon fishing streams in this area, has silt a foot deep. And I would encourage you to come over and look at it, and it will be interesting how Trout Unlimited and the various fishermen that come there view it when the fish start swimming upstream very quickly. It's a very sad story. Last one, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Given the entire development is 53 acres, and this is the first building, there's absolutely no reason this building could not fit in the site without the requested variances. Furthermore, it sets a very, very bad precedent, because if you grant them this, what's the next one? They basically will stand up and say, well, you already granted a variance. And that's tough to argue. And again, reiterating, 2 truck docks, which by the way, are not shown on here and were not discussed at all tonight. I think it's very important that that be a critical factor here, because truck docks do not represent office buildings. If I'm standing there, again, going back to your comments earlier, looking down at these, I have a direct line of sight through the trees, no buffer, no nothing, to lot, it's just up here. You know, trucks coming all day long, you know, back up. We will be on the town's sound ordinance, something fierce.
Right.
So I appreciate your consideration of our comments. I know there's a lot of other neighbors that want to speak, but I'd ask you, please deny this application.
I had one quick question. What's the impact of the current plant that's there at the bottom? Former Nelgi?
There is a garbage truck that arrives, I'm going to say about 6 o'clock, so it comes and gone. So basically, that's the only major disturbance we have.
No other noise issues or?
No, no. And that was there before the development was built, so grandfathered.
So you already have something in your backyard to begin with, I guess is my point.
Right, but that was grandfathered. Again, this is brand new, and so far, we've offered to sit down with the developer. We've had absolutely no response to talk about sound. We complained to the town. The town informed us that the ordinance that they had sent us, okay, we asked the town what ordinance governs this. They gave us paragraph 257.6. We came back and complained. The letter that came back to us that's not relevant. So we don't even know what's relevant, but when it does get operating, that's the code that will be, I hope, will be enforced.
Okay, thank you.
So let me ask you this question. It seems like some of the concerns that you have, which are reasonable and legitimate. I don't think there's any disputing that. The question is, how do you deal with them? But to a certain point, it seems like they would still exist even if this project was going forward without a variance request. There'd be less of an impact because it would be 50 feet further away. But if they were doing that and were compliant, there may be other issues, but they wouldn't need that variance. But you'd still see it looking down. So I guess I'd ask you the same question I asked the applicant. Under any circumstance, variance or not, can you think of any things that can be done to mitigate that impact? If someone were paying you to mitigate that impact, what ideas would you come up with?
Okay, I'm not a professional site planner.
Nor am I.
It's their responsibility. I'm not trying to dodge your question.
No.
I mean, put up 10-foot.
You don't have to answer it, by the way.
Yeah. It's their responsibility, and yes, there's going to be a development here. We understand that.
Yeah.
Okay? But during the site planning process, there was a concept that we were shown. Okay? This is what we're going to do. Okay? And that's probably as good a development. I mean, it would be an excellent development. But now, what was shown and approved, the first building, they haven't even started. The first building, they want exceptions. What's going to happen on the second building? What's going to happen on the third?
Slippery slope. So do you happen to know if that plan required any variance for setback, the two buildings that you don't know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll ask.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any more questions for this gentleman? All right. Who's next, I should just ask?
No way. Nope. They're leaving.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
I'm Chuck Lewis, 56 Waterview Circle. My understanding is that a zoning variance must be based on a hardship. The only hardship here is self-induced. The developer has over 50 acres to play with. He could make the lot larger. He could make the building smaller. He could make it 2 stories, which would have its footprints. We are told there's no specific client for this site, but I've never seen a doctor or a lawyer's office or my insurance salesman or anybody else with 24-foot, 1 story. I estimate this building here to have 12 feet. What are you going to do with the other 12? It's clearly an industrial building with also 2 loading docks. Since there's no valid hardship here, you must turn down this application. If it approved, it represents a dangerous zoning precedent. You know how that works. They'll come in for the second building, say, well, wait a minute, you didn't have any problem with the first one. We need a variance here. So the next 7 buildings will be built not according to the plan that we originally approved. We ask you to protect our property values and our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'm Andy. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I'm Andy Lipp. I live at 11 Hill Creek Road. I'd like to make a couple of comments. First, I'd like to read excerpts from the September 17th Democrat and Chronicle article on the redevelopment of the Rochester Colgate Divinity School's former campus, because it bears a certain resemblance to the issues we face at Elm Creek. It reads, neighbors of the Colgate Rochester Divinity School's former campus have sued to block a proposed development of the picturesque site on the city's south side. The lawsuit was filed by more than 20 neighbors and claims the city failed to seriously consider the impact that tree clearing, earth moving, and construction atop or into steep slopes with potentially unstable soil would have on the environment. wildlife, and potential for increased erosion. This is important because it has happened to us with respect to soil erosion, wetlands damage, creek silt buildup, decreased waterfowl nesting sites, and our pristine woodland views. That's what's happened. The suit implies that the quality of life implications were shortchanged and that the city failed to adhere to its own comprehensive plan or codes that were meant to ensure citizen input and best planning practices. This article is of a particular note as it parallels similar issues we are facing with respect to the developers' code violations and the town not enforcing them. That's my first comment. My second and last comment addresses the encroachment on our natural setting. Now, I completely agree with the residents who are concerned about the visual impact of the development. In a letter to the Town Planning Board I submitted last week, I stated that during the Allen Creeks Valley portion of the meeting last week, our residents mentioned that they could now see the development as a result of the extensive tree clearing. And I might add that the image that you was shown previously is a doctored view, and it doesn't show the trees that have been cleared. The drastic clearing, significant clearing of woodland. From their perspective, okay, many and others in the association, the degraded view is a negative impact that will reflect poorly on property values. With this in mind, I want to make sure that the town insists that the developer provide a fitting solution to eliminate the undesirable effect the site the development presents. Now, my thoughts are based on the fact that prior to any development, the view was comprised of numerous deciduous trees, and that when fall came and the leaves fell, the preponderance of trees still provided a great woodsy view. Now that the development has begun, the depth of deciduous trees has been significantly reduced. And with that, and with the onset of the fall, the development will be very, very visible. It's visible now with the number of trees that are taken down. You can see the development. Without the trees, with the leaves coming off the trees, it'll be twice as bad. And that's a forever thing. With this in mind, I believe it's right for us to make sure that the developer provide a sufficient buffer with an appropriately dense tree screen along the property lines that impact our residents' views. This should be made clear to the developer in such a manner that if not addressed, it's an obstacle to the development moving forward. The term buffer used last week was too ambiguous without a complete description of what the town means by it and what the developer is considering. Personally, I believe that nothing less than 15 to 18 foot deer-resistant conifers planted in several rows, okay, are needed in the buffer, whatever that buffer is. This should screen the view of the development year-round. For the record, on our property, there is no space where a viable screen can be planted. Furthermore, the planting of trees to provide a buffered natural screen to eliminate the intrusive view of the development is the responsibility of the developer. Knowing how we all feel and how we appreciate the natural and unique setting of Allen Creek Valley, I see the intrusive visual impact of the development as something that will hurt the property values if not addressed in an appropriate manner. Thanks a lot.
No, I don't have a question. I just...
You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just thought, just a general comment. We run into this a lot. This is going to be developed, it looks like, somehow. If you're speaking against development in this area, that's kind of irrelevant to what we're talking about. We're talking about a 50-foot area, basically, that's less, and that's what you should be addressing. To talk about you don't like the fact that it's wooded and now there's less trees, if those trees are going to be gone, even if they put this in there, then it's irrelevant to what we're looking at. So try to keep it to the point of what we're talking about. The 50-foot versus 100 versus 150. That's all.
Yeah.
Because although those are valid points, I mean, nobody likes development. Everybody likes nature and the trees.
Except the developer.
Right, except the developer.
Well, that's not fair.
This is our creek.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Before we call up any other speakers, I wanted to ask you a question. This is zone light industrial. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about some permitted uses in that district? And we'll ask some more questions about what's intended, but just a couple examples.
Well, I believe it's more like industrial would be like manufacturing and that sort of thing.
Manufacturing, he said. Light manufacturing, whatever that may be. Okay. So that's okay, as opposed to office space, but, all right. Okay, who else would like to speak?
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Donna White. My husband, Mark, and I live at 60 Winding Creek Lane, which isn't getting too much attention tonight, and I want to see if I can point out where that is to you. So I believe, are these the areas that we're talking about right now?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what they said.
And so this is the mobile home park?
Yes.
And so then we are...
If you want to use the other one, you can. If you want to
Yeah.
flip that one. If somebody... Okay.
All right, so we're on the north end, and we would be the very first house, which I'm not quite sure. I think right here. This is us right here. So if you want to stick to the point about the effects of changing this variance and how it would affect us directly, and all these poor folks that live in the mobile home park, I think we can do that.
Okay.
But I want to kind of just back up and go to basics first, just a little bit, if you'll indulge me. When we bought our property, and everybody else in Allen's Creek Valley, and everybody else who lives in the mobile home park, we're all equally owners of property or renters of property in Penfield. We chose to reside where we are, and we felt like we had protection from the town of Penfield to follow the rules and regulations that were set up to protect us, to protect not only our property values, but more importantly, our way of life. Our quiet enjoyment of the properties. They're already being affected, and they haven't even put the building up yet. We had our doors and windows all closed this morning, having a cup of coffee in the living room, and we could hear the beeping of trucks backing up. How is that going to sound when there's 2 loading docks up here? And what are the regulations for light industrial property in terms of how many loading docks they can have per square foot? Does anybody know that offhand?
I don't know that there are.
You know, they talk about having Staples and mostly office-type tenants going into those properties, but they're not lifers. What happens when the tenants change and the loading docks become more active? That extra 50-foot buffer they're asking for, which may sound minimal, but that's 50 out of 150. Easy math, a whole third. All the extra noise, even if there's no lighting issues, all that noise then creates, people have pets, the pets start barking. It creates a domino effect of noise. Garbage trucks coming in, will there be dumpsters? All of those vehicles back up and beep. All of those vehicles make their own noise just by their own right of driving. It's just, you know, and what I don't understand is they're saying that there'll be less clearance. Did I misunderstand that? That there'll be less tree clearance by virtue of?
The retaining wall, they said.
Okay, I thought I heard them say something about there would be less wooded area cleared. And I didn't get that.
I think it had to do with grading. If they were to not use the retaining wall, they would have to grade farther up the hill to kind of keep that grade.
So, talking about grading for a minute, they mentioned that there was, just give me 1 second, please. A culvert drain from the mobile home park, and also there's a 150-foot slope to the north near us. Has anybody studied the effects of the water drainage?
Sloping toward your home?
That's my understanding. If there's a culvert up here somewhere from the mobile homes, and there's a slope here which prevents them from clearing into this wooded area, what does that do to the water coming down over in these homes? Not just mine, but, all of these homes
Right.
here. I think that's a really important issue, and I don't know how...
Well, it's an effect on neighboring properties.
And the leaves are up, as has been mentioned several times. Those leaves help buffer noise. Everybody's talking about the view, but the noise is significant. Also, wildlife is being affected. I mean, the more, and I know we want to stick to the variance issue, but nonetheless, why don't they want to go further into the property? Because it's more expensive for them? How about the loss of value to all of us? It's my understanding that one of the requirements to approve a variance is dollars and cents, clear dollars and cents to the developers. Don't they have to provide you with proof of a burden by not getting that variance? And that proof is supposed to be based on all of these developments within this, however many acres it is, right? How can they even calculate that when this is the first building going up? So how do we know there even is a hardship? I don't know, it just seems to me like there are so many reasons not to give this variance, from the, just, again, strictly discussing this particular section, not just the overall, that we hate the development. Who doesn't? But it is going to affect all of our property values, all of our way of living, when they have other options. And they had all of the opportunity to create a different plan. And now they find themselves in this very first spot where, whoa, they've got some tenants. And the tenants want more parking. And the tenants want loading docks. They could have done that further in, a little further over. That should have all been part of the development in the first place. I just think that you have to look at, it's a big business, and they have lots of revenue and lots of other opportunities to correct that situation. I'm sure I could come up with more, but I think I'll leave it there. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ron Matthews. I reside at 36 Winding Creek Lane. Been a resident in our community for 5 years. I'm a member of the board, but I'm really trying to focus my comments here right now as a resident. In those 5 years, many issues have come before the ACV community that it hadn't experienced before. They all had to do with, in one shape, form, or another, zoning and development. From the day we moved in, even before the day we moved in, but from the day we moved in to the present, were we to ask any of our neighbors within ACV, what do you like about this place?
Because what they like about this place is what potential buyers like about their place when there's a need to sell. The two can't be separated. A happy seller is going to bring more buyers, and it's going to bring a better price. So the property values that we enjoy are directly related, not to what the zoning board does with every one of its decisions, but where those decisions impact the quality of life within our community. That has direct bearing on the value of our properties. One feeds off the other. And I would say for the first time in a long time at ACV, but certainly for the first time since we've lived there, it has been become absolutely apparent that there is now a sense that's stirring within the community that because of these issues pertaining to development and zoning and traffic and what have you over these past few years, there is developing a sadness. I don't know how else to describe it. I like to think myself a writer, but I'm having a difficult time coming up with any other word. It's a genuine sadness, both at what has happened to the environment, the natural environment, especially having to do with the natural barrier that was there previously and is now very much gone. But also to what's happened to Allen's Creek wildlife. But more importantly, I think it's what has happened to the spirit, or is happening to the spirit of the people who live there. And that cannot be minimalized. We bathe there. We prepare our food there. We wash our cars there. We watch TV there. We gather with friends and family there. We are like you. We want for you what we have if you don't have it. And if you have it, we don't want you to lose it. You know, I'm an educator by trade, spent many years at it. I can still remember high school football games many years ago. You're going to say, what the hell bearing does that have on zoning? Well, let me tell you. You have requests in hand for 2 variances. And those 2 variances call for reduction of some of the area that's been set aside to the extent possible within the codes to minimize the impact of development on residential neighborhoods. And I was at a meeting with several other people from our community when Dutch came and he presented this whole plan to us. He wanted to introduce himself to us. And I have to say to you, there was no desire to listen what our concerns about this project were going to be. Instead, what we were confronted with was basically a sense that I'm a good developer, to paraphrase his terminology. But I want you to know, what I want done is going to be done. And I don't want to deal with any nonsense. I'm not exaggerating this. We walked out of that meeting saying, uh-oh. We don't have somebody here who wants to communicate. We don't have somebody here who gives a hoot about how this is going to impact our lives. We have somebody here who is, as he perhaps should be in this day and age, a businessman. And I'm going to have my profits come hell or high water. But I want to tell you, I never said anything, nor do I know anybody at ACV who ever said anything to Dutch to say, you know, this might not be a good place to develop because, nor did we say, don't buy all of this land. Maybe you're buying too much. Be more selective. Nobody even said go someplace else. We finally reached the point where we were ready to accept the notion, okay, if this land had to be devastated, in our minds, maybe not yours, but if this land had to be devastated to any extent, maybe this would be the slightest marking. Maybe. It hasn't proven to be that. And going back to that football game, if 777 can come and ask for variances to get relief from requirements put upon them by the zoning board, by the zone, then wouldn't it be nice if we could come to you and say, well, hell, 100 isn't acceptable to us, 150 isn't acceptable to us, give us 300 feet. Wouldn't it be nice if we could do that now in light of what has happened? But we can't. All we can do is ask you, plead with you. You did not hear answers to the questions they were supposed to respond to tonight. If you did, I feel badly for us, because I listened clearly. My hearing isn't the greatest. I think I heard everything. I didn't hear answers to those questions. At least in my mind, no answers that could be considered reasonable and acceptable in light of what this zoning determination requires. So going back to that old football game, I'd like to say, I'd like to take it back. I'd like to push them back. Remember, any of you hear it? Push them back all the way. Well, I'd like to push them back further than 150 feet. Because given what has happened already, that has certainly not been enough. And there is no way they deserve these variances, and I beg you, please, be thoughtful as considerate and considerate as I know you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
You hear everybody's chair?
Who said, oh no? Did somebody say, oh no?
You want to talk to? We'll both talk. No, you want to go first? Yeah, I just want to answer the question. Go ahead.
Deny everything.
My name is Bob Saltzman. I live at 11 Circlewood Road, which is halfway downhill from Penfield.
Excuse, is that a subliminal shirt you're wearing there?
No, it's actually quite explicit.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I have questions to ask of the planning board. First of all, it seems that the developer has broken the law or evaded the requirements of the buffer zone between Allen's Creek Valley and the development. What do you want to happen as a result of that problem? Because as I see it, they have broken, they have violated it, and they intend to violate it some more with this variance. And I would like to hear from you, in front of all these people, what your thoughts are on this subject.
Well, I can give you a general answer that there are codes and rules and regulations that apply to all of us about the use of property that we have within town. And if a violation is occurring, then town does have staff to enforce the code. And there are many things the town can do about that in all circumstances, including taking somebody to court if necessary to enforce the code. I don't know if you're talking about specific violations in this particular instance. If you are, then I would urge you to call Andy, call whomever is in the Code Enforcement Bureau here, and file a complaint. And they're pretty good at investigating and following up on those.
All right, do you believe that that the buffer zone has been violated?
Well, I don't know what you mean. If you are asking if
Well, I'm asking about...
Has been violated. I guess that's what I'm asking you. By what action?
By the action here.
I don't know what that is, honestly.
Well, here's Allen's Creek Valley.
Yeah.
This is the lower level. Okay? That is the parking lot that they're proposing. Look how close it is.
No, it's
I think you're one parcel off.
Yeah.
Am I interpreting the drawing wrong?
Right. The sort of white rectangular building, move your left hand over more. Right there, bingo.
Okay.
That's what they're talking about.
Oh, I apologize.
It's all right.
I misinterpreted.
Well, you want to, if somebody else wanted to talk, if you want to take another look and come on back up, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bob, I didn't recognize you.
Well, I recognize you.
Did you really?
Former neighbor. My name's Bob Lewis. I live at 59 Waterview Circle. I've been there 21 years. Two things. Last week, they said that was a two-story building. Now it's a one-story building. Is it going to be a big aerodrome or something next week or something? I don't know. Secondly, they pushed all along the model to try to emanate or be like is Linden Oaks. This is about as far away from Linden Oaks as anything could be right now. And the third thing, before you do anything, see what the decision is on silting of the creek, because that went on before anything else, and they claim they didn't do it. That's it.
Sir, can you come back up for a second?
Yeah, sure.
When you say see what the decision is, what do you mean by that?
Well, they got to clean it up or not?
Well, so who's answering that question?
I guess you are.
No, not this board. I don't know if somebody had actually filed something with DEC. I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Did somebody say DEC?
I think the planning board is tracking it down as of last week.
All right,
So
well,
it's just going to be silted, huh?
No. You said, see what the answer is. I'm asking
okay,
you,
I see.
of what entity was the question asked?
Oh.
It's not this board.
Well, I'm talking about something else I don't know anything about then.
Okay. All right. Somebody said DEC
Well,
and...
but that's what's ruining the stream, and if you see all the anglers that go up in there,
Yeah.
you know, that's important.
Okay. Yeah, well, it is.
My mistake.
Not a mistake. It's just we'll take a look at it. Anybody else? Come on up.
John Garrett from 53 Sky Ridge Drive. Those of us who live up on Sky Ridge, this will be real short. Those of us who live on Sky Ridge look down at this site. And the comment that Andy Lippa made earlier was very good, in that if you allow this variance on this building, there'll be more variances allowed on other buildings. And the concern is, I bought the property based on the woodlands that I'm looking at. What's gone is gone. I don't want more trees taken out. I don't want to see pristine properties. I want to see woodlands. That's why I bought this property. I paid extra for it for that reason. We enjoy the view. I don't want more trees gone. It's that simple. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, my name is Marlene Shattuck. I live at 59 Winding Creek Lane. There are several questions. I'm not going to ask all of them, but we were told probably a month ago that all the clearing was done for the project. And then last week, we heard that there was going to be an area where they needed to take more trees down because of whatever reason.
May I ask you who told you the first part that all the clearing was done?
At a previous meeting for the planning board.
Well, so again, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Because when I hear somebody said all the clearing's been done, I'd like to know who said it. And ask them if indeed that they said it and why did they say it. So you're telling me that was said by planning board members or by the applicant at a planning board hearing?
Yeah.
All right. Is that, do you agree with that? I mean, you're up at the podium.
Yes, yes, I do agree with that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah. And 2 loading docks. You know, I haven't had my windows open all summer long because of the noise. I'm out of my home 5 times a week because I can't stand being inside with everything closed up and hearing all the racket. And the huge chipper had been moved, but initially I thought we were having an earthquake. I woke up at 6:15 in the morning to the house vibrating. That's not a pleasant way to wake up at 6:15 in the morning. And then the noise has been steady ever since. I just have a question in regards to also something that was mentioned tonight. Did I hear there were going to be 5 tenants in this first structure?
That was an estimate. Somebody up here asked a question, how many tenants do you think you'll have? And the estimate was likely 5, approximately averaging 8,000 square feet.
Okay. So last week we heard that the 2 loading docks were a surprise to those of us who were here. We asked what kind of trucks were going to be coming in that required loading docks, and they said, well, there's going to be the first tenant is going to be calibrating machinery, calibrating equipment. So I asked, how big is the equipment? Oh, it's probably as big as the podium you're standing behind. So it's very confusing because every time topics come up, there's always a little bit of a different variation. And I think it would be more helpful for all of us if what was told to us was going to be the truth and that we could just relax in that and have to put up with it. But to come into each meeting, planning board, this is my first time coming to this meeting, we would just like to have honest expectations from what we hear to come to fruition, not be changing every time there's different things going on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
You want the applicant to? No.
Well, let's see what Mr. Varus has to say.
Thank you. Peter Varus with BME Associates. Actually, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to say is you had said early on that it was likely this application was going to be tabled this evening. And I just wanted, on behalf of the applicant, to say that that we would accept that, and what we would ask is, based on the feedback we've heard from the board this evening, the questions that they were asked, is that we would like the opportunity to prepare exhibits responses to those questions so that the board can have a complete set of information to address your comments and questions and concerns. And we would also ask that the board take the public input and identify which of those comments you would wish for us to address also. And our goal would be to provide all that information so that...
I'll tell you, you don't need to wait for it to address them all.
Okay.
I mean, honestly.
And that's fine.
The same concerns have been expressed more than once.
Right.
You know, so a fair response to the concerns raised tonight would be good.
And that's fine.
Yeah, and we'll talk amongst ourselves there, but something I'd like to talk about is even leaving the public hearing open. We may
and
do
that was going to be one of my questions.
Okay.
And because the point being is that preparing and submitting this information to appear again on the 17th of October.
You know, because if we just go next month and you give us a nice set of papers and Boyle and Code gives us a set of papers.
Understood.
Sometimes hearing people talk is, not sometimes, it's always important. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all we wanted to say.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, another thing that we encourage folks to do, because we only meet once a month, unless something else requires us to meet, is reaching out and speaking with neighbors is always often helpful as well.
Very good.
It's always a good thing to try, at least.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Somebody else? Well, hold on a second. I thought somebody here, only because and the answer is going to be yes, but not at the moment. Anybody else here? Did I see a hand? No. All right, come on. Second whack at it.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just was wondering if at the next session, it would be possible to have accurate drawings which show all of the proposed buildings. We're seeing just one at this point in time.
Yeah.
Given the original drawings that were approved, we don't know where we stand right now. And it would clarify a lot of things.
Okay.
Relative to this and what other buildings are going to go.
So I'm going to ask you a question now. You said the original drawings that were approved.
The ones that were just shown.
Who approved that?
Planning board. Planning board.
The planning board approved 5 buildings? Well, hold on.
If I may.
I don't think they've approved anything yet, except the utilities.
Correct. So what has happened, and this will all be put in writing back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Briefly, where we are at today is the result of 2 years of planning and working originally with the town board and the planning board. The planning board in June of 2019 issued overall preliminary subdivision approval for a 9-lot industrial park or business park for a total of 350,000 square feet of building space. The planning board understood that the preliminary site plan that was provided, if you go to the record, go to the minutes, it will show those buildings were placed there at the request of the planning board as placeholders so the planning board could get an understanding of what the development could look like.
Right.
But the point was they only went as far as preliminary site plan approval, knowing that each building would be designed site-specific. And the reason why that was done was because the planning board did not want to give final site plan approval to this entire 9-lot, 350,000 square foot layout because of all of the clearing and grading it would have been required without knowing site-specific issues.
Okay.
And so they wanted to keep it on a site-by-site, lot-by-lot, building-by-building basis. The other key component in that is in June, the planning board as lead agency also issued a negative declaration under seeker that looked at all of the impacts. Traffic, drainage, clearing, EPOD permits were issued for steep slope woodlots as necessitated with the work that's been done to date. We will document all of that for you with the materials we'll give to you in preparation for coming back on the 17th of October.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks. And Mr. Vars, before you leave the room there, everybody's busy, but the sooner the better, so that if folks make it available at town, if folks want to see it.
And if there's written responses to the response, get those.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I was going to look to Andy as to when do you need that information by, so that, I appreciate sooner's later, but I do know there's the Friday drop dates.
As soon as you can get it, there's no specific.
Sure.
It's an open
Okay.
application.
Understood. Okay.
Did I cut you off there? Is it Mr. Lippa? You all set?
Just as long as we have a clear understanding of what's going to be in that.
Yeah, I mean, you said, I mean, we trust anybody that comes up to the podium to give us accurate information to the best of their knowledge, of course. Somebody else? Okay.
Round two?
Uh-huh.
Just a quick thing. Based on what was just said, if they're going to now provide you with studies that were previously done, those studies won't necessarily take into account the changes that were proposed. So can the studies be updated?
Well, if we're going to get studies of some sort, then, yeah, if they're outdated, I'm sure we'll ask for updated information.
Well, if they're going to put up a retaining wall and it's going to affect that, the drainage from the, you know, the culvert, then those studies are somewhat outdated.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I'm going to keep asking until nobody raises his or her hand. Did I see a hand back there? No?
Over here. Over here, Dan.
Come on up. There must be nothing on TV tonight, I can tell you that.
Seriously.
Really?
Yeah, not much.
Oh, it's Thursday. Jesus.
I have a question.
May we have your name, ma'am?
Oh, Karen Michaels at 69 Waterview.
Okay.
Okay.
The microphone?
Oh, I have a question. I came here last week to the meeting, and I wasn't that familiar with the land. I knew where it was, but I hadn't really looked at it or anything. So I took a drive around Thermo Fisher and all back there to see what everything looked like and to see where the creek was, which I'm on. And I didn't know exactly how it flowed, so that was curious. But when I looked over and saw where this mountain was, and it's literally, this is a mountain. And then they want to put a 24-foot high building on it. They're planning on, we'll see it for miles. It's huge. It's way, right? The mountain is what, as high as this building? And then they're putting 24 more feet? Naturally, we're all going to have a problem with sight and noise and everything else. So was that already approved? Can we do anything about that?
The building, which is a subject of the hearing tonight, has not been approved.
Oh, okay.
And what they're requesting tonight has not been approved either.
Okay. Good, we have an opportunity then.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Is this the amount of buildings they're planning?
No, as Mr. Vars just pointed out, what you're looking at there apparently was something that was submitted as a concept some time ago, but never given final approval by planning board, and I think this is the first time the applicant's been before us on this project. So that, again, what you're looking at was an initial concept. Planning board hasn't given final approval to anything here except the site stuff and utility stuff, right? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so everybody go to the planning board meeting, too.
We will, I'm sure we will. Yeah, okay, because our creek is running along here, and I was thinking if this is a building that's going to be there, my goodness, it's right on the creek.
Right.
We'll have more problems with.
Yeah, well, keep your eye out in case they ask for one there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
30 seconds. Bill Jones again.
Right up to the microphone, and I'll tell you when to start. All right, go.
Okay. How many of you have been up to the site?
What do you mean?
Okay, good. I encourage you to spend time up there because, obviously, you can see our concerns, and the magnitude of this is really, one of the big issues. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Nobody else. All right, folks, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. We still have, believe it or not, have one or two left, right? One?
Two.
This poor guy.
For all of your tolerance, letting everybody speak.
It's, we appreciate it. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We do our best.
This poor guy in the beach.
I know, and he says it's a football game.
Glad I gave my
I
own
always forget on
speech.
Thursdays.
Nobody ever listens to it anyways.
You felt better. That's what's important.
Titans
Yeah. Seems like they play every week.
Tired of it.
I know, right?
Yeah, that was my uncle and my godfather. Okay, Andy, what do you say? Next one.
Susan and Joseph Hodes, 7 Rossbrook Drive, Rochester, New York, 14625. Request an area variance under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a shed with less front setback than required under section 250-5.1-F1 of the code at 7 Rossbrook Drive. The property is owned by Susan and Joseph Hodes and is zoned R-1-20. SBL number 123.12-1-1, application number 19Z-0043.
That'll work. No, maybe not. Clip it with the
Use the clip on top.
Clip on top. See the brown one there? Yeah, you just need one.
You have to get rid of the steel ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you. We're just glad all those people weren't here to protest us putting up a shed.
Let them get out of the parking lot before you say
That's right. No guarantees.
So I'm Susan Hodis and my husband Joe. We are requesting a variance to put up a shed. We live at 7 Rossbrook Drive, which is a corner lot, and it's bordered on 3 sides by Panorama Trail, Rossbrook, and then in the back, Old Pond. So back here is all wooded, and there's a gully there in the creek. Our backyard is quite small. I have pictures on the other side of it if you want to see that. And our front, this is our front yard. The only place that we have any level land at all is about 12.3 feet in from the road, or from that property line, and there's a little more from the property line to the road. So it's on the side of the property by Panorama Trail. There's a whole row of trees and shrubs that cover that, but you can still see it a little bit. These pictures were taken from my phone. It's not finger painted, it just looks like that. And these little dots here are a little bit high, but this is from looking across Panorama Trail. It's behind this row of trees is where the shed would be. It's 12 and a half by 8 and about 8 foot tall. I actually emailed Andy today. My brother just bought a house and got a shed. We're requested for a vinyl resin shed, but he told us about this wooden shed, which is exactly the same size. So we're also considering that, but we don't want to throw any wrench into the work, so if that causes any complications, we'll stick with the vinyl resin shed. But there is no other place for us to put a shed. Our garage is underneath our house, so it's a low garage. We don't have any storage. So I'm not able to park my car in the garage with any gardening supplies. We have a motor scooter, bicycle, kayak. So we just want a shed to be able to put that stuff in. And we only have neighbors on this side So this side, they also have a row of shrubs and trees, so we don't even see their house. And then there's a house over here, and there's nothing behind here except across the street. So that's basically it. We just want to be able to put up a shed if we can.
I did notice one flat spot in the backyard. I take it that's within sight of your kitchen or something, and you don't want to block that
Well,
view?
I hate to undo this.
I withdraw the question, no.
So our backyard, so this is looking from the house.
Yeah.
We have a patio here. It's 21 feet from here to where the property drops down.
Yep.
And then there's this little peninsula right here, and that's 22 feet wide at the widest, and 18 feet long to that point.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it's only 7 feet wide. So it would really take up the backyard. We would just have, it's a very small backyard. The front yard has most of the.
Well, that's what I thought. It's like the only level spot in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. The entrance to this is going to be facing the driveway?
Yeah, there's
Kinda.
there's a turnaround
Right.
here, and it's going to be about 10 feet back of the turnaround, and it would face the turnaround. The door would
Right.
face the turnaround.
What color are you going to have it?
Well, if we're allowed to get the wooden one, actually they're the same color. The drawing of the shed, it's a beige shed with a brown roof, and this is with a gray roof.
Well, if there's a question about the color, because we got the wood shed, we could obviously paint it any kind of color.
We could,
I'm just wondering.
if you want pink or something, we could do that.
And would it be visible to any adjoining property owners?
No.
From
No,
the
that's
road?
the thing.
It looked like it was pretty, of course, leaves could come down too, but it looked like it was pretty well buffered for.
Yeah, I mean, you would be able to see it if you stopped to look, but mostly it would be if you were driving or walking, you'd have to stop and look.
Right, you're not going to have any exterior lighting on the shed?
No, I thought I put like a battery-powered motion light, but that would be it.
Okay.
No, we're not going to have any electric or anything out there.
Right. And on footers?
We found a guy that's going to level the land, and he's going to put a stone base.
Okay.
And then if we get the wooden one, it would be up on cement or the blocks. The blocks.
Okay, that's all I have to.
Anything else? No. Anyone in the audience?
Now you lucked out.
We do have some fans left. Thank you very much.
Die hard.
Thank you.
Michael G. Sponable, P.E., Greenland Surveying, BLLC, 403 East Miller Street, Newark, New York, 14513. On behalf of William Dana, requests area variances under Section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a larger storage building than permitted under Section 250-5.1-F12A of the code, a storage building with less setback than permitted under Section 250-5.1-F12B of the code, and an expansion to a pre-existing non-conforming structure under Section 250-7.13 of the code to allow the construction of an attached garage to an existing non-conforming residence at 163 Fellows Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by George Lair and is zoned RR-1, SBL number 140.02-1-59.1, application number 19Z-0044.
Good evening. I'm Bill Dana. I currently live at 7382 Slocum Road in a town of Ontario, but hopefully going to move to this site. Basically, I bought the property, and it right here, I'm getting approval for last week to subdivide. This will be a 1 acre lot. There's already an existing, I guess you could call it a farmhouse, because this used to be, all the farmland used to go with that, but the existing farmhouse is here, and then this is to the north. This is Fellows Road, and up here is 441. It's way back there somewhere. So the north property, this would be about 1.89 acres to be exact, where I plan, You okay? Okay, sorry. Where I plan on building a single-family home with an in-law residence. My mother-in-law currently lives on the other end of Fells Road, and we want her to stay at Fairport. She's been there for 55 years, so quick and easy move for her if this all works out. So my variances are, the two that I'm talking about first is my position and the size of my pole barn. I'm currently going to have a 3-car garage, obviously one for my car, my wife's car, and my mother-in-law's car, but right now, where I live in Ontario, I have a 6,000 square foot pole barn, so I have a lot of toys and equipment, and I mean not equipment, tractor, I got a snow plow, stuff like that. So I am downsizing a lot. I think, if I'm not mistaken, what I could only really have is a 30 by 30 barn. It would be allowance. I'm asking for 32 by 48, just so I can park. I don't like to keep anything outside. I like all my equipment, or keep calling equipment, my toys and what, so I want to keep them inside. I don't like to have anything outside. So basically, that's the size, why I want that size. I would like to go bigger, but I don't want to get carried away. And the other reason why I need the variance to have it closer to the property line. You have, for a barn this big, I guess, you want it 50 feet away from the property line. I'm creating a new property line with this house, which I don't know if I just told you, I'm fixing up and I'm going to sell that. Actually, in the process, I'm going to sell it to my niece and her husband. So it'd be nice to have family there. So I'm creating this new property line, and the way the property works, the way the grades works, I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to see this, but when you pull in the driveway, the barn, everything is right now, it slopes back about right here. It starts sloping back hard, and I'm going to have a walkout. So this is going to be a ranch, but the way where the barn is, if I go any farther this way, I'm going to be too close to the house. I don't want a barn right next to the house. I want to have some green area, in between. And this right here is like 60 feet, which is a nice, yard. My mother-in-law's side is going to be right here, so she'll park here and have her walkway here. And I know she's going to want to have a little garden and all that. So I wanted to keep this over as far as I could, as close to the property line as I could, just to give this a buffer. And again, if I go, back here, it all slopes down, and I'd have to bring like fill, and it would just be a mess. I wouldn't even do it if I couldn't do it. But if I had to do it back here, I couldn't do it. I position the house at a certain, the way I position the house to be parallel with the road. There's a big tree line buffer. If you guys ever go down Fells Road, there's all these nice big pine trees, which I plan on leaving all of those. The only ones I'm getting rid of is there's 2 dead ones, and unfortunately I got to cut 2 live ones down to get my driveway in. Other than that, this is all tree line buffer, and all around. This whole thing was wooded. I just cleared out some ash trees that I had to clear out for this, for where my site plan is. The other thing now with this house, so those are those 2 variances. I think I covered that. This house, when this George Lehrer there, his family's owned this house since like 1936, I believe. His parents lived there. He lived there as a child. They used to own all this land, so somehow the road went through his property. That house was there before here, but so this house is existing, obviously. I'm taking down several outbuildings. This was like an old chicken coop that was yucky, and this was an old barn, and it's basically almost falling down. So I'm taking this down. So when I remodel this house, I want to put a nice garage, 2-car garage. It's actually going to be about 2.5-car garage with living space above to accommodate, because this house is only right now this house is only like 20 by 40, so I'm trying to accommodate this house so I have a, it's a nice neighborhood. All the houses around are higher value houses, and I don't want to just be stuck with a little 800 square foot house in the middle of 300,000 plus houses. So the garage, I think, it shows on the 50 foot, the garage will be back far enough, I think, which works for you guys. It's just because it's the house, is my understanding. I don't know. So, I mean, it's basically that in a nutshell, I guess.
So thanks for coming.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Being so patient.
Yep.
I appreciate the efforts to try to bring this more into compliance with removing the other buildings that are behind there. I know they're structurally very, very unsound, so
Yeah.
that'll be a big
the area.
improvement. I don't really have any specific questions about the porch. I think that's what you're going to do. You're going to add a porch to the front, did you say?
Of the old house?
Yeah, the one that your niece is buying.
No, I'm going to add a garage.
You're going to add a garage too, but I thought there might be a porch added as well.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
There's already a porch there. There's actually 2 side porches. No, what I'm going to do is just build a garage. It's going to be about a 2.5 car garage with living space above it. So.
Okay. So it would it be attached to the house?
Yes.
Okay. And so it'll look like the rest of the house?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to completely reside the house. Right now it's got like old cedar, the original cedar shake on it.
Right.
The house is, actually, the foundation's great. The bones are, it was a post and beam, if you know anything about construction.
A little bit, just
It was
a little.
built like a barn.
Okay.
And, nowadays they build walls. This is built with like posts, and then they just filled in the middle. So it's solid, it really is. I was surprised when I got in there and did all my inspections when I purchased it. So I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, I mean, this thing's going right down to the studs. Hopefully if this all passes, I got my permits all ready to go and gonna get situated on that. But yeah, it's gonna be resided, new everything here. The garage is the way, what's the word? Aesthetically, is gonna look like it's always been there. I mean, that's kind of the way I am, you know.
Well, I think that'll be a good addition. So the variance you're asking for the barn, the pole barn, is very significant. And I think you answered my question, which is, what other placements have you looked at? In particular, pushing it back.
Right.
Because it is visible from the road. I know you have that buffer, but it is visible. That is something that's going to be there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only reason why it's visible is just because I have to put a driveway in here and I have to open that up. But I'm leaving, there's a big old chestnut tree. I love that tree because there's a couple over here too, but there's one right on the corner, and that's a big tree, and it's got like, it's blocking it. I mean, it's obviously you're going to see it. I mean, you can look in, you can see through, but and I plan on doing, a hedgerow here. Once I get rid of this barn was on the property line, there was no trees there. I plan on putting a buffer there too, even though my niece, she's not going to care, but.
Would you really can't move it back any further from the road?
No, honestly, from the road here, well, that's not, this part is not, I don't think that's under, whatever.
Right, but.
It's this way.
From the soon-to-be new line?
Right.
Yeah.
It's because, unfortunately, and I've been talking to everybody there several times, I didn't want to give this yard an acre, but I had to. So when I first bought it, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to give this guy, just as minimum as I could. I didn't know my niece was going to buy it at the time, and then I'll have more land, and then I could build, a bigger barn and not have to worry about coming here. But anyways, so that didn't work out. So I had to give this an exact acre, which it is, and the rest of mine. Like I said, so when you come back here, so the land comes down and then it levels out just a little bit, like right where the house is, and then after the house, mean, it's hard to read, but it drops off about 6 feet from like we're halfway through my garage to my back. And I plan on having a walkout, so it's a ranch on a walkout. So everything back here kind of slopes out. Then when you get back here, you can see how these lines get wider. It levels out again, and then there's, I mean, no one's ever even known it. There's a big holding pond that's back here. That's cool. I totally like that. And so then it comes back up to like a berm, and that's holding pond is behind that berm and everything. So anywhere back here, it just drops right off. And, you know, like I said, it just is going to cost.
So what are you going to store in the barn?
Like I said, all my toys. I have two snowmobiles, a four-wheeler. Plus I have a, you know, my lawnmower. I have a plow truck that doesn't go on the road. It's just for, right now I have a lot of land, you know, a lot of driveway. I own 7 acres at my house, so I have a big driveway. And just, you know, things like that. I don't like to keep, I won't have any room in my garage with my
Right.
3-car.
But I was just noticing that the pole barn is bigger than some houses. So, you know, what we want to do is try to do the least amount of variance you need. So I'm asking what you think you realistically need.
I mean, like I said, I'm coming from a 60 by 100 pole barn right now, which is 3 times the size of that. Not that I use that whole thing for all my toys, but I do some storage, you know, for, you know, cars and people like that, which I obviously won't do that anymore here. I mean, 48 feet with my truck and my snowmobile trailer, you know, all fit on one side. That's how long. I mean, my truck and snowmobile trailer is probably about 40 feet. So if that's all, you know, you're gonna have one garage door here and a garage door here. You pull in truck and trailer, you know, here is just gonna be, you know, all just that enough room. I mean, so the 48 feet wide or depth is basically gives me my truck and trailer where I can unhook the trailer, back it up, and still pull my truck in. So, and then, like I said, I have my other plow truck that's going to be sitting in there. It's just, I kind of came up with that number just the way I have at my house, the way I park things in my house right now. Right now, where I park my truck and trailer is 60 feet. And, you know, I have ample space to walk around and do stuff.
Is the barn going to be used for any commercial use at all?
No commercial.
You're not running a business out of it?
No.
And what will it look like?
It's going to look like, so what I'm mirroring, this barn is like a red barn. It's not going to be the gambrel, but it's going to be, my house is going to be white. I want to make this like an old fashioned. It's going to be red. It's going to have like 3 feet of gray, and then the walls will be red, and then the roof will be like either, I think gray. I think I was going to go black, but I think I'm just going to keep it the same gray as the, you know, like the, I don't know, you call it like trim, you know, how you see that where it's lower, but I don't want stone, but I'm just going to change the metal.
Right.
Yeah, it's just going to be a metal pole barn, you know, so it's not going to be.
Okay. Siding?
Yeah, it's not going to be like vinyl siding. No, it's metal, like a metal pole barn.
So it won't need any exterior maintenance?
No, yeah, maintenance free, yeah.
Okay. Any exterior lighting?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a big component of that. I used to live in the city, and I lit up my house like it was Fort Knox. And not that I want to have, you know, I'm going to have light here, and then what I have at my house now, I have those accent lights that just shine, you know, you see them like in the soffits that just shine light down, you know. Only on this side, not on my niece's side. Just I'll have one over the garage door here, one over the garage door, like I think your code, and then, you know, I'll have a man door here with a light, and all the rest. Actually, I won't. They'll all be soffit lights going across this side, just to light up. So when we're in this side, you know, you can light everything up over there.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have any other questions.
Anything else from the board?
Nope.
Anyone in the audience? All right.
We're new friends now.
Right. Sit in a meeting like this long enough and you never know what's going to happen.
You know, not for nothing. Yeah, that was a long, meeting. So.
Okay, very good. Then the public hearings will be adjourned, and we'll take a, yes, with the possibility that if everybody was okay with it, we're gonna keep the other one open. It'll take 4 minutes, and we'll reconvene in the back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, we are. All right, let's see who's here. One is gone, right? Do.
Meadowlark?
Is Simply Crepes the first one? I know Simply Crepes is here, but is it? Who's here ahead?
I think they're the only ones.
So number 6 is, what number are you guys? What were you guys? 3. You're up. All right.
They promised to stay to the end. They said they would, but yeah.
Okay, Marie, do it. Number 3 is the lucky winner. I'm going to make a motion that this is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker requiring no further action.
Second.
All right. Motion by Marie to declare this a type 2 action pursuant to seeker, and a second by Andres. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion to approve this for a variance of 5 feet. This is a minimal request. It will have no detrimental impact on the neighborhood. I think it's going to be a very, very nice addition. It'll be nice, and again, no negative impact, and you checked with your neighbors and all were in favor of it.
Second.
Further discussion? Motion by Marie to approve for the factors stated, and a second by Mike. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Simply Crepes.
You don't really have to stand there.
Okay. Let's see, for Simply Crepes, I'm going to make a motion pursuant to seeker that we declared an unlisted action and further issue a negative declaration.
Second.
Any further discussion on seeker? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the variance requests with the conditions of the, well, I'd say let's get a written parking agreement for the insurance business. I'm not sure if we can condition the approval on a written agreement for the plaza, just because the confidence level wasn't there and I wouldn't want to hold it up. But I guess what I would offer then is applicant shall make a good faith effort to enter into an arrangement with the owner of that plaza for further parking, if that makes sense. I'm not sure we could do much better. I don't want to hold it up because of that, because I think that the spots that they're going to develop combined with the insurance are going to be sufficient.
I'll second it.
Yeah, minimal request for the lot coverage. Good business. The other locations are doing quite well, so I think it'll be a good use for that property. Any further thoughts? Okay, so we got a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You free samples of the
She's your best shoes, though. Best shoes.
Very nice.
Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, how about we take a break now?
Number 9.
Number 9.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that this is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker requiring no further action.
Second.
All right. Type 2 action pursuant to seeker, motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
And I'm going to make a motion to approve these variances. I'm just going to lump them all together. First of all, for the first building, it's going to be more into compliance with the reduction of those, or the removal of the structures in the back. It is a pre-existing building, so it can't conform to our setbacks. I do think the garage will be a nice addition to that building, I really do. In terms of the pole barn, I am aware that there's precedent on that road. It certainly is not, it's one house into Parenton, but as Andy and I were talking, it's within the character of the neighborhood. But I do think there needs to be a condition that it is not used for any commercial use at all, that it doesn't exceed the application stated here, which is 32 by 48, and that it is in keeping with the description that was presented at the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay? I do think that it will, you know, I understand you're wanting to keep things out of sight and in a secure area, so I can be supportive of that.
Thank you. I'll second it. Okay, motion to approve with the comments and conditions, and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, let's rewind to number 1.
Number 1.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Make a motion that's an unlisted action pursuant to seeker, also issue a negative declaration.
Second. Further discussion on that? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to move to approve this application. I don't think it's going to have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. It's basically about as close as you can get to a residential use and having a commercial business. Minimum amount of people going to be there, minimum amount of customers. I think it's a good use for the property. Other than the sign, it's probably going to look like a house still. So, for those reasons, I would move to approve.
Okay, I will second it. Any further discussion on this? Oh, great use for the property. All those in favor?
Aye.
2 is the warehouse. Yeah, I was just thinking of, I thought I had written a note, but it's another one. So I'll make a motion to declare it a type 2 action pursuant to seeker.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No, I guess what I was thinking is that there's planning board, we don't have to table this, right? Okay. All right. So I would make a motion to approve. I note first of all that the town board approved the proposed use a month or so ago. And yes, while the variances are numerous, they're all result in minimal impacts to the neighboring properties, which are largely commercial in nature. We didn't hear any opposition to it at tonight's meeting, and I think it's also a good use for the property. Minimum traffic at appropriate hours. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Give the second to whomever you like.
Heard my.
That's her favorite.
I know. It's tough.
All right. Number 3, Meadowlark.
No, number
We did
4.
that, 4.
Oh, sorry, we did. Sorry, here we go. Number 4 then. Number 4 is, I'm going to move this to type 2 action pursuant to seeker, not subject to further review.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And for the variance, I'm going to move that we approve the variance. This is really, it's basically going into an existing commercial business space. They really hit all the points in terms of its, for the noise, for the odors. They talked about all those points in terms of, you know, the exhaust systems, the egress, no exterior lighting. Really the only changes are going to be a new sign out front, and there's adequate parking. So I think it'll be a welcomed addition to the plaza down there.
Yes, I agree. All right, we have a motion to approve with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Another good use. Okay.
Number 5, Shadow Pines Drive with the deck to it.
3 seasons.
3 seasons, yep, so there's a type 2 action, not subject to further review.
Second.
All those in favor of the seeker motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And I also move to approve this variance. I think the applicants showed that they did their due diligence in terms of with the homeowners association, with the neighboring golf course, with their neighbors, in terms of a fairly thorough review within their own area. I think with the fact that there was a deck already there, they're just, it is the shape and harmony of it will go with the existing house, so it will blend in nicely from the drawing that we were shown. While it was self-created by doing this, the deck was already there, so it's not like it's going to have a larger footprint in terms of impervious area.
And I think there's a 3-season room on the adjoining property, on the adjoining.
Yeah, probably not. I
Not
think
quite the
this will
same,
actually
but
blend in a lot
yeah.
nicer. Yeah,
Yep,
it'll look
yep.
like the house.
Second.
All right, okay. Motion to approve in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Are we up to 7?
Yeah, we're up to 7. I'm going to make a motion under seeker that this is an unlisted action. Also, we should make it.
Are we leaving it out?
It's a type, wasn't it
Done by the planning board?
was a type 1, and then they handled the seeker.
Planning
It
board
was a
did?
type 1 action with coordinated review at the time that they approved the preliminary site plan approval.
So you're saying we don't need to take any
I don't think
action?
you do, but you're going to keep it, yeah, we're
keeping it open
Public
anyway.
hearing open?
Yeah.
You would need to address that now anyway.
So seeker was done by. You need a motion for
Type 1
that?
action is coordinated review. Planning board was the lead agency.
I guess it can't hurt. But I'd like to, if there are any expectations, Peter laid out what they hope to bring, but if there's anything specific anybody would like to see in terms of a written response, let's at least put them on notice for that. So I don't know if you have any.
I don't really think so. I mean,
Okay. I guess I'd suggest they go back and watch the video and listen to the comments. And I would like an explanation for the use of loading docks with office space.
yeah, they didn't address that at all.
Yeah, and honestly, I should have asked. I was thinking that, I thought, I kept thinking they're going to get to it, and then I...
Well, it never came up again. That's-
Right.
But at the
Neither
planning
came up.
meeting, they were talking about calibration, like they were talking about a much different use
Machine,
of that
yeah.
building. And in fact, there was some concern about odor for that. So that's why I asked, just office space.
Right.
So I would like that clarification.
Sure, why don't we ask them why they, if they've changed, and if they have, why?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the difference between?
And what exactly is the proposed use? And if they're going to have loading docks, what are they going to be used for?
And I'd also like to know if the original design that they had, if there was with the smaller parcels when it was broken up into separate ones, if those would have required variances, because the smaller buildings, in a sense, you'd have less need for parking, less need to extend into the back. It still feels like there's alternative options for this that don't require variances. It's a brand new site.
Well, and that's good to see and good to know, and I think for another reason as well. To me, it often behooves everybody that's interested in a project where variances are being requested, and in particular, adjoining property owners, what could go there without variances. And we touch upon that every now and then. So to the extent that they would like to provide anything like that for us to see and folks to see, I think I would like to see that as well.
Why don't we ask them what they consider to be an office building? Never asked that before, but what the hell is, what exactly is an office building?
Well, I think
Is
a
that
lot of
calibration thing where you're doing light?
Well, I think a lot of the tenants or the
testing, a lot of
neighbors are
light
Linden
bulbs.
Oaks. I mean, Linden Oaks has a much different feel than what
Yes.
this is. This is a
Yes.
Henrietta, large footprints,
Right.
small strip plaza or large strip plaza type feel.
Well, and they left so much green space in Linden Park, and they clear cut this
This would be a
area.
lot of field.
Yeah.
An office building doesn't have industrial uses. I mean, even if they're small industry.
The zoning does. The zoning allows for it, but
Right. Okay. Anything else? And obviously, it's going to be open, so that's not meant to be exhaustive.
Right.
Okay, so, Peter, do we need a motion on that to leave it open,
I
or
think I would do it
just to
to
clear?
clean it. Yeah, keep it clean.
To leave the public hearing open?
Yep.
One more, though.
Yeah.
The 24-foot high building, is that a typical one-story height?
That's a good, yeah, I mean, why would you have high ceilings like that, just to heat
Right.
and cool
For a single-story office.
Right,
Okay, so that,
So you add that to
lifts and maybe all that stuff, yeah, okay.
Do we have a prototype that we've seen? Not really, right? I
Just
mean, what
the
kind of roof
exterior.
line is going to be?
it was a rendering that wasn't,
Not that,
Just
not
flat,
this
yeah.
way,
No.
you know? Okay, another thing to add. So we have a motion to keep the hearing open. I'll second it.
Re-advertised, yeah.
Yeah, re-advertise and all that stuff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, we already did 8, right?
Yeah, nope, Rosbrook Drive, shed. Make a motion that this is type 2 action under seeker, and no further review needed.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. And I'm going to make a motion to approve putting the shed on the location they want on the property. It's well buffered, there's really no other place to put it. I don't think it's going to be visible to any great extent to anybody other than maybe passing motorists if they stop and look at it because they admire it. Other than that, that's the basis of my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait,
Oh,
who seconded that?
I did.
Who seconded seeker?
Probably Andres.
I'm going to give it to Marie.
It was across the field, not me.
Marie.
Quick job, McGraw.
All right, you know, great job tonight, folks. I mean, it's 10 after 10, but boy, we had a lot of applications and some complicated ones,
that
so
was a really well-done hearing that you ran.
that was,
Yeah, you did a good job.
yeah,
Good job.
thanks.
Type
Well, we
2
all,
action, no further review required.
yeah. Okay, so,
Unlisted or not?
anything else? We'll stand adjourned and
Type 2 you have to do.
see you next month.
We're just gonna go eat some
Thank you.
brownies.
Good night.